Yeah, they've managed to cart people in, and you know, they're going to pay a fee and they're going to come to light because just less than a few days ago they had, and we knew this was going to happen. They had just a few hundred people, so they bust all of these people in. But here's where the rubber going to meet the road. All of the the sponsors and the people who, you know, who lease up the booths and the tables because they're expecting people to come and spend money. When money is not spent, that's when you're going to hear the complaint. Say, boy, I pay all this money because I'm tell me, so now bringing a big crowd, a big spenders. Yeah, I'm not bringing a big crowd, but some of them are from my neighborhood. Some of them are my neighbors. Some of them I see them work down the street. You know, them don't have the wherewithal to buy the kind of things that we're selling. They can't invest. So, and then somebody sent me a picture this afternoon and showed me like a half empty room. So they bust a whole lot of people in. But it not really matter to us. Numbers not really matter to us. What matters to us, results, production, effectiveness, efficiency. Those are the things that matter to us. So if they want to bring in 1 million people at the end of the day, we must see how, you know, those people can contribute to the development of Jamaica, starting with the people, not with resources. You start with people, and then you use people to develop resources. So that was my comment regarding last night. No, listen, our first guest is no stranger to this program. And let me bring in Mr. Vumva V. And I see where we also have hold on 1 second. Oh yeah, Herb is right here. Yep. Yeah. So that's where we are. But before I bring in our guest who needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. You know, he's been on the program several times. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he speaks to kings and as well as the common man, and everybody understands. He's not afraid to give credit where credit is due. He's not a partisan in the sense of the word, like some people where, you know, if you support a party, that party can never do wrong. He's not that kind of person. But before we do that, I just want to play a quick video about leadership and make a few remarks about the leadership that we have in Jamaica, or the lack thereof.
Leadership is about moments. And what makes great leaders is how they rise to the moment of leadership. You see, you can't lead until the moment actually arrives to lead. It's not built into the ether. It's the moment to lead that's important. The challenge with many of us is when that moment arrives, we question, we doubt, we obfuscate. We go, me? No, not me. What about so and so? Why don't they do it? Why don't they say it? Or worse, we make that terrible statement. It beckons often at the back of our heads. It's like a resounding, grazing, nasal chamber. Why me? Why you? Why not you?
Yes, folks. Why us? Why not us? Because nobody's going to do it for us. Nobody's going to do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves. And we've seen that we can't trust this government to do anything that it's promised. So, without further ado, let me introduce Professor Kenute Thompson. Now, Professor Kenute Thompson is a professor of education policy, planning, and leadership at the University of the West Indies. And he's also the project director of the university's Governance Recommendation Implementation Committee. Big title. Essentially, he's saying that when things need to get done, he's one of the people that they go to get things done. He's the author of 8 books, 18 journal articles, and over 200 newspaper columns in which he discusses a variety of issues on accountability corruption, development, education, justice, and leadership. Professor Thompson is a social activist who's active on social media, particularly X, formerly known as Twitter, where he engages in debates and speaks fearlessly and frankly to those who hold power. Professor Thompson's scholastic achievements include the 2023 Principals Award for research activity generating the most funds made to the Caribbean Center for Educational Planning, which he headed. In 2022, he was awarded the Bronze Place. He was a Bronze Place winner in the 2022 Independent Publisher Book Awards for the book Education and Development: Policy Imperatives for Jamaica and the Caribbean. And in 2021, he was a finalist in the Vice Chancellor's Award for Excellence for all-round excellent performance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking for him here. I think he's here. Okay. Professor Canute, welcome, 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 sir. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm not. His mic is muted and is I don't know if he's having difficulty. Let me see if he sent me anything.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, while we are working on getting the good Professor Canute Thompson connected, we are just reminding you to please go ahead, like and share. We are working on getting this connection going with the good professor. And so we have 400 plus of you right now. Please go ahead, share it on your social media. Go ahead and let's get the ball rolling, because as you know, your participation is what's going to make this very successful. I know many of you have been asking us for an opportunity to donate and participate. Remember, you can always go and visit the website, the ojldf.net, where we can take your donations. You can get more information about the foundation and what we're doing. I think we have Professor Canute here with us, and we're going to bring back on stage our trusted leader and our guests.
Give the audience a little tidbit of your achievements, you know. I hope you don't mind, because I know you're a modest person and you wouldn't want me to spend the whole time just telling them all the things that you
Not at all, not at all. That's
suffice it to say, we have in our presence a very humble servant of the University of the West Indies. He's one of the people responsible for engaging the minds of our miners so that they truly can become what we so proudly pronounce all the time, the future of the nation. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Professor Canute Thompson. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very, very much, my good friend, Mr. Ratigan. Thanks. Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening to all your listeners across the world, across the diaspora. It's my real privilege and pleasure to be joining you this evening for this important conversation. And I trust that what I share tonight will find useful pathways in your advocacy as you go forward. I want to talk about some issues related to education this evening. I want to address what I call two hot button issues relating to the condition of the education sector. And then I'm going to go on to speak more substantively about a vision for education in Jamaica. I don't know if I have privileges to share a screen. If not, I'll just proceed. The first issue I want to highlight. You're muted again, sir.
Yes, you do have the option to share a screen. Just click present in the center of the screen below you, and you'll be able to stream.
All right, thank you. I'm not seeing, is this it? Picture in picture? No. I'm not seeing that.
Yes, right
Center.
center of the screen at the bottom, all the way at the bottom to the center.
Of the center.
Present.
Not seeing that at all.
If not, you may proceed, sir.
All right, okay, let me proceed. Okay, so the first thing I want to raise has to do with what I would call the confusion in Jamaica right now over the role and presence and value of the diaspora. In one of my posts this morning, I made the point that 3 million Jamaicans live overseas. The diaspora, the size of the diaspora is the same size, probably slightly larger, of the people at home. Yet we're having this archaic discussion, this uninformed discussion around the question of whether and to what extent we should involve members of the diaspora in the issues related to governance and the development of the country. I'm on record since 2017, let me share, that as saying that it is my view that in the process of constitutional reform, we should create a mechanism whereby members of the diaspora could compete for what I called at-large seats. And my thinking then was that rather than creating this inflexible structure where every seat in the House is a geographically represented seat, we should have a number of seats, and I think at the time I proposed either 5 or 6, a number of seats designated as at-large seats for which any Jamaican anywhere in the world could compete. And of course, the person who gets the most for most number of votes would be the person who is selected. And that for me represented an attempt at giving this hard-working group of dedicated Jamaicans more than just a vote if they happen to be in Jamaica or happen to have an enumeration in Jamaica, but to recognize the tremendous value they make, the tremendous value they represent, and the massive contribution they make. At any given time, the 2 largest sources of income, foreign exchange, to the Jamaican economy are the 2. Remittances is either 1 or 2, all right? It never goes to 3. And that says something about how we should position our diaspora. So the first thing I want to share is a study that I along with some colleagues at the University of the West Indies, conducted on teacher migration. And what we found, and this study was conducted in 2022, and what we found was that whereas we had, in a sample of about 160 teachers, 47% said that they had migrated for various reasons, mainly the conditions in the classroom and the desire to have a better life. There was another 42% who said that they have every intention of migrating at the earliest possible opportunity. One interpretation of that is not only the fact that it represents a threat to and a drain to our classrooms, but what it represents is that our fellow citizens see migration as a pathway to a better life. But further down in the study, it was found that many of them said, were conditions in Jamaica to improve, if their salary were better, they would stay. If conditions in the classroom were better, they would stay. So what it says is two things. A, that migration becomes an attraction because of people's search for improvement in their quality of life. But it also says that those who go retain a desire to be close to their homeland, but for an improvement in the quality of life back home. And so my view is that the virtual demonizing of members of the diaspora, while at the same time making these demands and expressing these expectations for them to contribute to the development of the country, is a kind of schizophrenic behavior, a kind of political disjointed reasoning, and lacking in clear conscious public policy about the importance of migration in a connected world. This is not the 18th century or the 19th century. This is 21st century. The second thing I want to raise as a hot button issue, which defines part of the landscape of the educational, educational landscape in which I have taken a tremendous interest, is what I refer to as the well-being or health of our leaders, of our school leaders. One of the areas that is now the subject of extensive study across the world is the issue of the well-being of the school principal, the well-being of the school principal. And a colleague and myself from the university, Dr. Wilmot, we have undertaken to study the issue of principals' well-being. Another colleague back in 2021 did her doctoral research, doctoral dissertation on the well-being of secondary school principals, exploring the physical, mental, cognitive, social, and occupational well-being. And as the word suggests, well-being refers to a state of equilibrium in the mental, physical, cognitive, emotional, interpersonal, and financial realities of a person's life. And what we have found in our study, which use a sample of 60 school principals, 68% of which were females, of whom are females, and the other 32% males, which is consistent with the distribution of the population, where you have more female principals than male principals. And 92% of them work in the public institutions. We found, I want to highlight three findings, which again, not only speaks to the attraction of migration, but also speaks to the reality in our schools. In this study, 35%, just above a third of the respondents, either disagree or strongly disagree that their jobs allow them room to exercise the autonomy they desire. What this is telling us is that principals feel the presence of outside forces interfering in their desire and their exercise of their authority to manage their schools. One of the things that we have found in another study is that board chairs and politically appointed persons often tamper with and interfere with the running of schools. And so some of the performance issues we see relate to the fact that there is corruption and interference in the operation of schools. So when you look at the totality of the performance of our schools, something about which I'll speak in a moment as well, we see the presence of corruption and interference. So 35% say that they do not feel they have the autonomy that they need to do their work. All right. The study also found that as many as approximately 30% also feel that they are not supported by the Ministry of Education. All right. So in the exercise of their day-to-day work, they feel that they do not have the support of their Ministry of Education. Happily and quite surprisingly, the same set of data show that give the percentage. 73% agreed or strongly agreed that they received the support of their boards. And this dialectic between support of board and support of ministry is itself somewhat striking. The final bit of data I would share with you from this study is that these principals who express this view, the majority of them have been on the job for in excess of 5 years. So these are not rookies who are out there struggling to find their feet. These are people who 45%, no, sorry, let me give it that. 21% have been principals for 6 to 10 years, and 26% have been principals for 11 to 15 years. So what it tells you is that when these people express these concerns, they are speaking from a depth of experience. The final bit of data I'll share with you about the condition of education in Jamaica is that the most current study we have on the inspection report of schools in Jamaica found that 55% of schools were operating unsatisfactorily. So that tells us that there's a good amount of work to be done in transforming our education system. You would be aware also of the Orlando Pattison report, which found that 40% of our students, about 40% of our students are attaining the requisite levels of performance across English and math. And only 27% of our school-leaving population goes on to tertiary education. So that is a kind of summary of the state of the educational reality in Jamaica. I want to go on now to address how we emerge from this state of unacceptable educational performance and what are the imperatives that must be pursued. Am I still with you? Am I with you?
Oh yes, we're all enjoying it. You're doing a great job.
All right.
If you want to come in, we can come out and join you, but we're here.
Okay, great. The first thing I want to highlight is what I call the fact that Jamaica continues to operate largely under a colonial educational philosophy. All right. And so there's need to decolonize education. All right. There's need to decolonize education. What are some of the vestiges, the continued traces of coloniality in our education system? The truth of the matter is that the education system that was designed in the immediate post-slavery era through the education grant that the British government made to provide education in the colonies, that the system that was developed at the time was designed to ensure that slaves understood their places and were prepared with the minimal levels of knowledge to carry out their functions in the plantation economy. The education system had no place for people like you, Mr. President, an uppity black man who asks questions, or for my good friend Will Rattigan, who dares to challenge authority. The education system was not so designed. The education system was designed for you to be compliant, obedient, and do as you are told, because that is what would keep the colonies stable. So stability of the colonies was a principal consideration of how the education system was designed. And bear in mind that the curriculum that was crafted for us was crafted around us learning basic things and learning by rote. So critical thinking, original thinking, creativity, question posing were never part of that system. In fact, if a child began to ask too much questions, he's seen as disrupting the class. He must just be silent and take notes. That is how the education system was designed. And students who would go off the reservation and make interpretations, whether of Shakespeare or of any other piece of literature, people who would offer their interpretations that were not part of what the answer that was preset, they got their answers wrong, because you must regurgitate what you are taught. And so my friends Bevitt and Levitt in 2009 argued that despite the exposure of many post-independence Caribbean nationals to education, whether here in the Caribbean, here in Jamaica, or in London, where many went to get scholarships, their application of teaching and learning remained largely tied to what they were told and what they were taught. So being a civil servant, and the education system was also designed to prepare people to be civil servants. Being a civil servant meant being subservient, all right? And your only response when given an instruction is, yes, minister. Daring to say, but minister, could put you in big trouble. And everything you did must protect the minister. So no matter what kind of shenanigans the minister going on with, no matter how much errors he or she makes, how many false bit of information or malfeasance goes on, you must protect the minister. So you must be willing to take the fall, if necessary, to protect the minister. And Hilton and Fraser, and Potter and Hilton and Fraser in 2022 contend that the strictures of colonialism continue to impact the educational leadership and educational system in the Caribbean. The ex-slaved continues to be the enslaved. And when you see how civil servants today deny knowing what they know in order to ensure that the minister looks good, that person, Will Rattigan, who said, well, I think it's a media house, well, at least the media house got it, but it could very well be a civil servant who took that picture of that largely empty room at this diaspora conference here in Jamaica and sent to the media. If the government ever find out which civil servant did that, they're on their way tomorrow, because they should not do anything that exposes truth. All right. So I'm saying that the colonial education system continues to pervade in Jamaica. And we see that coloniality not only in how we teach and how we learn, but the kinds of personalities that the system seeks to produce, which are people who are compliant, obedient, and who subjugate their critical thinking capacity to the wishes and whims of those who hold power. And what do we see as a consequence of that? What do we see as a consequence of this perpetuation of the slavery colonial thinking in our modern era? I could just give some examples, and later we could look at the data. Low levels of GDP per capita, low levels of innovation, low levels of tertiary participation, high levels of crime and violence, underutilized natural resources, high levels of cheap labor, right? And the failure to maximize the potential for in the areas of sports, and the contribution of culture and the diaspora. So let me come back to the diaspora. Let me offer you an interpretation of what we are seeing in how we are discussing the issue of dual citizenship and the diaspora. People and people like Francis and Rattigan have made it worse, quote unquote. You guys are daring to challenge the authority. And because you have gone overseas and have learned a thing or two, the thinking goes, you're daring to question a minister or expose corruption. Who are you? The thinking is. And so because the diaspora now represents a horn of courage and a forehead of information and a chest of confidence, ready to question things that are not in the best of the country, the diaspora is now seen as the enemy. Diaspora is now the enemy. And so anything that will serve to belittle those who do not fall in line is going to be the new political strategy. And that, I suggest, is one of the most potent manifestations of the colonial thinking that has infested the minds of our leaders. So when I talk about decolonizing education, my good friends, I'm not talking merely about the processes of teaching and learning in a classroom in downtown Kingston or Washington Gardens or Waterhouse or South St. Elizabeth. We're not talking merely about the classroom. We're talking about challenging our leaders to a higher level of mutuality, to a higher level of a perception of equality, where they recognize that they must engage the citizens not as subjects, which is a term out of the colonial era, not to engage citizens as mere second class, which is what they want to do with members of the diaspora, but to engage citizens as equals. And that the leader, those who currently hold power, are merely there at our behest for a time to serve us and not to serve themselves. That is the decolonization about which I'm speaking. Coloniality is based around the human beings in the realm being subjects of the king. And decolonizing education also means decolonizing politics, decolonizing economics, and decolonizing culture, from one in which we talk about the ruler and those who are ruled, to one in which we talk about all of us being equal and all of us having a say. I just want to highlight a couple of things about how the colonization of our education system is manifested in particular social ways. Jamaica continues to have the highest rates of murder per capita in the Caribbean, right? what does that tell you? What does that tell you? It tells me a couple of things, chief of which are these, that the education system has failed to develop the reasoning and problem-solving capabilities of our citizens. But I am of the view that whilst there is a political strategy from time to time, as was employed very boldly and unashamedly in 1980, whilst there's a political strategy of killing your enemy, I do not hold the view that there is currently a political strategy of using murder as a tool of wide-scale social control. It is the case that the government has a view that you should get rid of these violence producers, as they are called. But that is a very short-sighted strategy, because for every violence producer that is killed, there are 100 behind them willing to become the next Don. So the strategy has to be around how you control or minimize the forces, the social forces which produce youngsters who go into violence. And here's my theory. The problem we're having with violence in Jamaica is a kind of unintended consequence. So because government wants to control people's thinking, because government wants to have a large number of the population unexposed and uneducated, it underfunds the education system. The consequence of that underfunding is not that you have some untrained, unskilled youngsters who just come out and just sit down and depend on the state. No, these untrained, unskilled youngsters decide to find alternative means of surviving. And one of the tools of their survival in the kind of economy and society that they create is that they have to kill to survive. So the high levels of murder represent an unintended consequence of the inadequate funding of our education system. But government is caught in a kind of situation where it whatever it now does, it hurts itself. Because by operating on the notion that you can't fund education too much because you're going to have too many bright people, it then produces a lot of youngsters who go into alternative ways of surviving. But for it now to reinvent its thinking and begin to fund education heavily, it faces a problem of justifying to the investors who want cheap labor how it's going to give these people the kind of money, the kind of education which will make them demand more. So part of the colonial, might I say, continuation is that the system requires us to produce undereducated, slightly educated people who will only qualify for minimum wage, because that serves the interest of the call centers and other places that benefit from cheap labor. So high levels of murder, high levels of homicide is one of the consequences of our colonial education system. But government is now caught in a situation where reversing that means that it must stand up to the powerful who desire cheap labor. So the education system produces two sets of undesirable outcomes. People who largely only qualify for slave labor slave labor, slave pay, minimum wage, and people who resist the slave labor pay and go into economic activities, many of them illegal, in order to maintain a lifestyle that is above the level of their counterparts. So remember, I said only 27% of our graduates go on to tertiary education. The other 73 are the ones earning the minimum wage, such that when government in 2016 introduced the revised tax-free threshold, the famous or infamous 1.5, only 78,000 of a workforce of 1.3 million, listen to me, of a workforce of 1.3 million, of which 10% would be 130,000. Only 78,000, just about 5%, qualified for that threshold because everybody else was below the 1.5. Catch that. That's the slave labor we're talking about. A second consequence of the colonial education system that we see is what I call the low levels. So we spoke about murder and the fact that Jamaica has one of the highest rates in the world and one of the highest rates in the Caribbean, both in the world and in the Caribbean. I could tell you that Jamaica in the latest statistics, Jamaica is fourth in the world, all right? We spoke about the fact that only 27% of our students go on to high school. Here's another frightening thing, has to do with our GDP. China, which has a population of 1.4 billion, has a GDP of 11,000, which is low compared to some countries, compared to, say, Denmark, which has a GDP per capita. China's GDP is 14 trillion. Denmark has a population of 5.8 million people, and a GDP of 350 billion, and a GDP per capita of 58,000. China's tertiary participation is 51%. Denmark's is 80%. China's murder is less than 1 per 100,000. Denmark is 1 per 100,000. But here's the kick I want to give you for this part I'm making. Their global innovation index between those two countries, their global innovation index are 53 in the case of China and 57 in the case of Denmark. New Zealand, for example, with a population of 5 million people, a tertiary participation of 83%, has a global innovation index of 47. All right. Singapore, with a GDP of 372 billion, a tertiary participation of 97,000, has a global innovation index of 56. Jamaica's global innovation index is 29. 29. So what it says is that the quality of our inventions, our patents and our innovation, the quality is low, our rating is low because we have a low level of tertiary participation. And the reason we have a low level of tertiary participation is because we have an inadequately funded secondary and primary system. But also alongside that, we have an insufficiently funded tertiary system. Government doesn't want people to go to tertiary education because that will mean that people become uppity and fresh and ask questions. We want a subservient society. I want to say then that in decolonizing education, there are a couple of things that become critical. All right. Firstly, it is the mastery of context and critical thinking. Secondly, the ability to solve problems and manage conflicts and create alternatives. And that business of problem solving, creating alternatives is where innovation rests. Thirdly, respecting each other. I will make this point to you, that the kind of disrespect that leaders show to each other and leaders show to citizens become the antithesis of what we want in society. And those leaders lack the moral authority to call for respect in society. Part of the carnage we're seeing in the society, part of the confusion we're seeing, is founded in the fact that leaders are not people who are showing respect. And the fourth thing I want to mention in terms of the features of decolonization is where we recognize, where we make well-being, the well-being of the citizen, the primary objective and purpose of government. Government's responsibility is to create an environment for fostering the well-being of citizens. I'll give you an example. Finland, for 6 consecutive years, has been voted the happiest place on earth. And one of the key features of the Finland's socio-economic arrangement is that government plays the leading role in brokering arrangements for wages and conditions of service of workers between the private sector and workers. So at the bargaining table, you don't have unions and capitalists or investors sitting across from each other, trying to get one over on each other. The person who chairs, the entity which chairs those negotiations between workers and capital is a representative of the government. And so the deal that is struck promotes the interest of all three, of workers, of investors, and of government. And they call that in Finland social corporatism. Social corporatism. And that country, 6 years in a row, the happiest place on earth. So what then should become the imperatives of the education system in Jamaica? I suggest the following as I close. Innovation and socio-economic transformation, educational justice and peacemaking, knowledge and cultural export, reshaping the curriculum to focus on critical thinking, interpersonal skills, and knowledge creation. Fifthly, fashioning tertiary education to be a mix of interests that attract youngsters. So part of the problem, I said to you, why we have that 27% accessing tertiary education is because the tertiary education product is not as appealing as it needs to be to the average youngster. So here then are 7 areas, I believe, must be the focus of education in a decolonized education system. 1, environmental and technology applications. 2, e-commerce. 3, internet publishing and broadcasting, smart media. 4, solar power and renewable energy. 5, agriculture and food safety. 6, biotechnology and artificial intelligence. 7, cybersecurity. And 8, financial services. Those, I believe, are going to make the difference in how we restructure and decolonize our education system in Jamaica. I thank you. And decolonize.
Thank you so much, Professor. We appreciate your presentation. At this time, we're going to invite the panelists to come on and see if we have any questions for you. We'll bring in our illustrious panel to join you in this conversation. I yield back to Wilfred. To join you in this.
You're having a feedback. You're having a repeat.
Am I?
Yes.
Yeah, we're having a feedback.
Okay, go ahead.
Doc, I want to thank you for providing that. And I know you could go on for days on this subject, but what I think we've just heard is the macro view, the overarching view, the view from 30,000 feet regarding the state of education in Jamaica. And the picture that we're seeing is not a good picture. Based on everything that you've seen, you've experienced, you're an educator. Can you look into the future? Take your crystal ball and please tell us, based on everything that's going on in Jamaica now, particularly with the Ministry of Education, and there are other ministries, affiliated ministries that, you know, they're part of this issue as well. Where do you see us as an educated, or maybe an undereducated, or maybe an uneducated country in the next 2 years?
To be honest with you, I have a deep sense of foreboding right now, because I don't believe that the government as a body has a vision for a kind of future in which you have youngsters leaving school and finding or youngsters while in school getting the kinds of opportunities they require to develop the skills they need. Nor do we have a minister and Ministry of Education which is on top of the issues facing the sector. What we have are is a focus and a preoccupation with public relations and trendy kind of catchy lines and comments, but a courageous engagement with the realities of inadequate supplies in schools, highly trained teachers leaving, families with limited abilities accessing adequate nutrition for their children, said families receiving state support to mentor and raise those children, the revolving door between school and crime being cut off, and understanding what drives youngsters from schools to gangs. I just don't think that there is an honest reckoning with those realities. And if I am correct that there is not an honest reckoning with those realities, we're going to be having this conversation 5 years from now. All right, just think of what it is, that less than 3 in every 10 students who leave high school go on to post-secondary education and training. Less than 3, 27%. The government currently spends about 13% of the budget on education. The Minister of Finance will try to put it differently by excluding what we get in grants and loans and focus on what we're collecting taxes, and presents that about 20% of the revenues are spent on 20% is spent on education. Somewhere in the region, as it boils down to about 6% of GDP. If with 6% of GDP, we're seeing only 3 in 10 going on to tertiary education, what will it take to double that? And if places like Singapore and New Zealand are having levels of participation at 80-odd and 90-odd%, and consequently levels of innovation in the 50s, when will Jamaica move from 29? So I repeat something that Ralph Thompson said back, I think, in 2004. Ralph Thompson was at that time the head of CEPROD. He said we need to declare a state of emergency in education, because it is the frontier of what's going to turn Jamaica's fortunes around. And it won't happen in 2 years, by the way, but there has to be a strategy of moving the access from 3 in 10 to 6 in 10 in the next 10 years. And that means heavy funding. So the outlook for the next 2 years, I'm afraid, the outlook is grim.
Let me just do a quick follow-up. OT in the chat made the point, and it's well worth restating. If you, Professor, were appointed the education czar tomorrow, and I know you've given your prognostication of what it's going to take and what it will look like 5 years from now, right? But let's say you're given the mantle of power and direction and influence in the ministry, and they're saying, here is everything, here are the resources you need, go make it work. What's the first order of business?
Okay. The first order of business would be to ensure that every school has these 3 resources. In respect of teaching and learning, that their labs and other areas are adequately supported. In respect of social support and counseling, to make sure that every school has a counselor. And thirdly, in respect of what I call the building blocks for development, to ensure that every child who is exposed, who is vulnerable with respect to inadequate nutrition and parental support, that there is a social worker. Back in the day when I was in the 70s, that makes me that we had what we had in those days called community health aides. What I would provide for every school, and within each community, is that every school would have a set of community health aides, a community education aides. And these education aides would perform 3 functions. They would be technical in terms of helping the children with their cognitive responsibilities, their homework, as we call it. They would be moral in terms of providing guidance, but they would also be social in terms of enabling those youngsters to navigate the very harsh realities and the context in which they operate. I see, as a footnote, America is now proposing to put a warning on social media sites that says consuming too much social media content is dangerous to the health of students, all right, of children. What we want to provide in our education system is a kind of protective mechanism whereby students have someone who has the requisite experience, knowledge, and social self-control to be a guide to them as they grow up. Many of these youngsters we have skip school, not because they don't like school, but they skip school because their parents have not been trained in understanding the value of school, and there's no one else in the community, in their context, to provide them with the kind of exposure for them to value school. So when they drop out, many of them stay out. During COVID era, of the population of about 750,000 students, all right? We lost about 12%, 120,000, about 17%, 120,000 students went missing because there was no protective barrier. So among the things I would provide, in addition to technical services and support for schools, I mean, teachers tell me, Mr. Rattigan, that at the beginning of the school year, they get one, not a pack, one whiteboard marker. That's illustrative of how under-resourced our schools are, all right? So technical support. Secondly, to ensure that students have the nutritional support. And thirdly, that they have the social support.
Thank you, Prof. Prezi.
Just let me know if it's still getting that feedback, so I can make some.
Feels good now. Sounds good now.
Just let me know. Perfect. We do have the rest of the panel here. We know, Herb, you're an advocate for education. Jeffrey, you've been all over it. But Dr.
Getting feedback again.
We know, Herb, you're an advocate for education. Dr. Rupert, you've been a professor teaching in school for many years. Dr. Rupert, what do you think of Professor Thompson's presentation, and what are some of the ideas you think the government is lacking in getting Jamaica on the path to becoming a modern society focusing on technology and innovation, and also using the tools that are available to educate our youngsters?
Mr. President, people were observing us, but I should say first, Professor Canute Thompson, you are a breath of fresh air, as they would say, because as far as I am concerned, as an educator myself, you know, I couldn't have said anything better. Jamaica suffers from a lack of early childhood education, both for the child and the parents, as we know. I grew up, and I'm not ashamed to say that as a barefoot boy. But luckily, I had a mother who was very tenacious, and she made sure that I went to school and understood what it meant. So I'm saying to you that, really and truly, that when I hear presentations like this, I really have to really say thank you very much. There's a bright hope, there's hope, because we need to learn more about how we can improve our educational system. We saw examples of discipline, lack of discipline recently. We saw many things that are happening that should not be happening. And I really hope and pray that they listen to the words of the professor here and learn from him, because obviously he did not born in a golden spoon and in mouth either, as we used to say. We just need people who are hell-bent on making sure that our children get the requisite education that is needed to carry the country forward. We know the countries that are successful. We know the policies. All we have to do is to commit ourselves to the process and make sure that we can really overcome. Because I'm telling you, Dr. Professor, I hope that you get a chance to go all over. I know you're at the university, but to really bring everybody up to speed and understand why education is over. I read a report with Dr. Herbert Gale, and he pointed exactly to the things, especially he gave us a period from 1962 to now. And believe me, I really hope that they listen to people like yourself and himself and others for our future, because we really need it. Thank you for the opportunity to share these personal thoughts. Professor, well done. Let's look forward.
Thank you, Dr. Rupert. And guys, our panelists, we do have a next speaker in our next group coming on. So Dr. Rupert, I'll go to Herb Nelson. We do have your comment to the professor and his amazing presentation.
Hi, Professor. You know, each time I am with you, you seem to blow me away into another world to try and figure out how to get back in a renewed world down there in Kingston or in Montego Bay or any of the other, fast-growing cities that we have in Jamaica. Now, the curriculum, that the national standards curriculum in Jamaica is a comprehensive framework designed to enhance education across various grade levels. Is all that planning that goes into the NSC, is any of it working? Because from what I'm hearing you say, that the fact that we have this ingrained British system that does not seem to recognize us as other than the children of slaves, and that this government or past governments have not done anything to move away from that and to have maybe some type of Afrocentric system that will give the kids some more pride in themselves and their family members, get them involved in the education process. I've never seen parent-teachers organizations work here in the United States. right? I've always seen them begging parents to come out and support their kids because of the fact that they have to work 2 and 3 jobs and they can't take any time off. So give us a sample of the NSC in Jamaica and how we propose it's going to work to include STEM and STEAM programs. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think the evidence of how well or not well the curriculum is working is to be seen in the percentage of students who, despite moving on to secondary schools under the current system, where every child is placed, and we now have an arrangement where a child may choose up to 4, sometimes 6 schools. Every child moves to the other level. So that doesn't really represent a real test or assessment of the system, Herb. The real test is how they come out at the high school level. And the majority of students, despite having the school-based assessment, the SBA component, which is a part of the exam submission, despite the SBAs, the majority of students earn less than 5 subjects. And that tells you tells you a couple of things. One, it tells you about the level of application and discipline of the students. But it also tells you about the level of attractiveness and appeal of the content. And thirdly, it tells you about the kind of monitoring and supervision and support that is offered by the various arms of the state. In Finland, for example, as in Singapore, students are not tested against some predetermined mass testing system. Each student is carried on a path that he or she, along with his or her parents, chooses. And each student has an ILP, an individual learning plan. And that learning plan is crafted based on the student's aptitude, the student's level of capacity, and the student's interest. What we have in Jamaica, for the most part, is a one-size-fits-all system, and every child is evaluated against that one-size-fits-all. And the majority have no fit in that size, and so they end up being left behind. So the curriculum reform that we require in Jamaica, in my view, is one that will pay closer attention to the individual learning styles, learning needs, and interests of students and the capacity and resources of the school and their parents. And so a child is developing towards his or her personal goals and not being compared with other children. It's a comparison component that is also hurting many of our children.
Thank you so much, Doc. Jeffrey.
Esteemed panel and His Excellency Sir Wilfred Radigan. Mr. President, you have been doing a great job, sir. Professor.
Yes, sir.
When I listen to you speak, sir, I think Jamaica needs more people like you who can go down in the gutters of Jamaica and speak to our people, sir. Because I don't hear you use any highfalutin word of fundamental and hypocritical and democratical. You use the words that our people can understand. Well, why are you laughing at me, man? You know? And Professor, I lift my hat to you, sir. And I must say, continue doing the great work. I think it's people like you that need to go around the country to teach the Jamaican people about our constitution and the Charter of Fundamental Rights and freedom in this country. You're a person who I will listen to any day, and I will listen to you for hours. I must say, continue doing the good work that you're doing, sir. And I'm just giving you a comment that, I don't really have a question of such, but based on what you did, the presentation you did tonight here on Reason Ratigan about what is going on in Jamaica, I must say to you, sir, you did an excellent job. And people like you, we need more to hear from. Thank you.
Thank you. If I might, although you didn't ask a question, there's a quick comment on an observation made by one of your guests in the chat about the teachers' colleges. I agree that part of the reform and transformation will be in how we reshape the curriculum of teachers' colleges. I think the time is up.
Thank you so much, yes, Professor Thompson. Your presentation is archived on YouTube, and many over the years will go back and see this excellent work that you have done. On behalf of the entire Diaspora Conference, we appreciate your participation, and we thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much as we continue our conference. We're about to move into another segment of the program, and we have a wonderful group of people coming up. It's going to be phenomenal. These are some youngsters that are ready to take it to the next level. And this segment of the program is called Jamaica's Future. So you're going to listen to our youth provide an honest assessment and solutions to the challenges for success in Jamaica. This panel will include Akeem Hamilton, Dervin Cochran, and of course, Donna Yearwood. To do that, I would like to introduce a wonderful friend of mine who will be coming to do the introduction. And let me tell you this, she is amazing. So as I bring her on the screen, I just want you to look at her blush while I talk a little bit about her. Now, this you're seeing here is none other than Dr. Nashika Jackson Ogilvie. Now, Dr. Nashika is a co-host on my radio show, Good Evening, Mr. President. And in fact, for the last 3 weeks, she's the only one, well, she's running the program, and I've been MIA, including today. So I want to thank Dr. Nashika for the excellent work that she's been doing. But enough about the radio show. Let me tell you a little bit about this amazing woman. Dr. Jackson is a doctor of health sciences with a concentration on global health, where her research area is on social determinants of health. She was born in Kingston and raised in Clarendon. Dr. Jackson now resides in Florida. She's also a licensed nursing home administrator and, of course, an associate college professor. Without any further ado, she will be introducing our panelists. Dr. Ogilvie.
Well, thank you so very much for that warm welcome, Mr. President. So as you said, we have 3 panelists today. The first is Delvin Cochrane, is a current doctoral student at the University of the West Indies, pursuing a doctorate in educational planning and social development. His background spans both education and law. He has a dynamic work experience in both public and private sector. His previous degrees are a first degree in special education, which is a bachelor's of education, a bachelor's of law degree, and a master's in educational and leadership administration. So that's she's a 19-year-old University of the West Indies Mona student from Barbados. She loves economics, politics, music, sports, and aspires one day to merge these passions with various projects in her professional career. She currently performs on many stages across Barbados as well as volunteering her time at the National Cultural Foundation of Barbados. Donna Lisa understands the importance of education and is currently pursuing study by doing a Bachelor's of Science in Economics and hopes to minor in Cultural Enterprise and Entertainment Management. Lastly, we have Keelan Hampton, Bachelor's of Law graduate from the University of Technology, a social and political activist in Jamaica. He believes that endless possibilities lies within the human, within the humans. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our three panelists for the night. Back to you, Mr. President.
And we want to thank Dr. Jackson for our presentation. I think we're missing one of our panelists, Akeem. And I know Will is working on getting him to join us here. Dr. Jackson and myself are pleased to have you, Akeem and Donnelly. So let me start. I always say ladies first. So Donnelly, we're going to go with you first. Tell us a little bit about you, Miss Donnelly Yearwood. Who is Donnelly, and what would you like people to know about you?
Well, first of all, hearing my accent, it's a bit obvious, just a tad bit. I'm from Barbados, but I study in Jamaica, and Jamaica is very close to my heart. This began when I did a student exchange in Jamaica in sixth form. But I'm currently an economics student, but I love music and I love to perform. And education, this is something not a lot of persons know about me, but education is very, very dear to my heart. I actually tutor young children at the current moment for about 3 years now, and I recognize the importance of education and how it can build a society and build a community, and how it can help the Caribbean at large, and especially Jamaica, to improve its economy and its welfare of its citizens.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Donna. All right. We have next on the list, Mr. Akeem. How are you, sir? Tell us a little bit about Mr. Hamilton.
I am great. I am a forever 22-year-old. I love law. That's where I have my degree in. And I'm quite excited about politics. Specifically, I want a better Jamaica. I'm quite invested in creating a better Jamaica from what I have experienced to where I know it can get to. Especially the education system. I have tutored when I was in college, and a little bit after that, tutored maths, which was kind of struggle, but they did get on. So that's it really.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And tonight we are super excited to hear you guys talk a little bit about some of the challenges you're dealing with. I'm so sorry, but we're missing one of the panelists, ladies and gentlemen, and Wilfred is working hard to get him to join us here. I am not sure how long it will take to get him, but let me bring Will back in. Sir, if you could provide us an update.
Yes, he's having technical difficulty. He said he's gonna. Is that him? No, he said he's gonna try and join us as soon as possible, but he's having some difficulty. But he hopes to be here momentarily, and that might very well be him right there, Cristiano. Not sure.
All right, thank you. So, Akeem, what are some of the challenges you have seen as a youngster? Forever 22, is it? Or 23? Which one? Which 21? 22 or 23?
Forever 22. Forever 22.
Right, 22.
I see the education system in Jamaica. If there's room for improvement and there's room for growth, and it's right at the tip of our finger, but we refuse to grab at it. We take on the principle as the professor stated in his one size fits all. So they have a system where the education system is built in such a way that they treat all of us as the same fish and tell us all to climb a tree. Everybody to climb the same tree. But if they keep telling us to climb a tree and we keep failing, we start feel like failures, and more people feel like they drop out. So I guess that's why the UNICEF has it that 35% a person drop or 35% of young people drop out of school, education, employment because of poor education, because of financial problem, pregnancy, and lack of opportunities. They don't feel like, a lot of time they don't feel connected to it because they're being told every day, if you climb up you can climb up that wall, and tell you every day to climb the wall, step after step after step. I mean, our Education Act was passed December 16, 1965. The last time it was amended was January 1st, 1980. So we're still having this concept, this all outdated concept to teach these modern children how to go along. It does not work. It does not connect. And all we need to do, we can change it, move with the time. The kids that we have today is not what my mother was. It's not my father nor my grandmother. Total different type of children we have today. You have to teach them right where they are, and don't try to tell them something that way outdates them. Try to let them understand something that way outdates them and doesn't relate to them at all. That's
some very interesting statistics.
And the SLB.
So before Donnelly speaks, if you could advise the government on some of the educational policy as it relates to tech and giving children or students the tools to improve their education, what will be some of those ideas you would share?
One, don't standardize compensation to the schools. You can't give all the schools one money. You have to, the one that's most needed, get a larger portion versus the others. An example, you can't give an Arden a 25 million and give Clancarty High School another 20, give them 25 million, where their problems and their expenses triple that. When Arden has a big support, they have a strong alumni program, they have a lot of organization funding the school, so they don't need that full 25 million. They mostly need government to give them like 10 or 15 to cover some of the small bases. However, you're giving Clancarty that don't have any bucketive. The only thing they depend on is government funding to support the entire school. The school that is being fed with a lot of inner city person, and so their family don't have the money to build a big alumni association to give funds and stuff. When the school throw a program like, let's say a party, so they can have like a what we call it, barbecue, so they can generate funds to cover something for the school. But by the time they cover half of what required for the school, there another problem arises because they don't have enough funding. First thing, don't make like funding for school become a matter of equal. It wouldn't be equal, just and reasonable. Equilibrium, yes, one of those words. Would make it better. The second thing, I believe, changing the Education Act to meet the time. Two, change how teachers, how education is delivered. Change the curriculum itself. In regards to the standardized curriculum that everybody gets, it won't work. Adjust the standard, the curriculum so it matches the school, the background of the student that attend the school. Every student won't understand this. Every student don't learn the same way. Some are visual learners, some are audio learners, some are both, and some are other form of learners. Adjust the environment to fit these persons and carry the education to them. Don't force them to come drink it, to come to you, but carry it to them so they can understand. I believe SLB needs to be revamped for more students to be able to go to university, because less and less students are going to university, as the professor stated earlier, because they can't financially afford it. When you leave high school, and most of them don't even go to sixth form to get the CAPE subject to get to university, because they can't afford going back to school to spend a large portion of funds just for another 2-year or 1-year program. So that is the situation that we're facing. So your education as university fee has gone to a point where you really have to have money to go to school. Even if SLB pay the tuition, you still have to pay the auxiliary fee, you still have to find money for you to go to school, find money to eat, so you can eat, so you can survive, or so you can buy your books or some of the stuff that you need for school that the school don't supply free. Things like that. You'll have a lot of kids. Like, I remember one day I was short of funds and I had to walk from UTech all the way down to Biennial, where I used to live, because I didn't have any money. My mom didn't have any money. I'm from a low income society, part of society. But these are situations affects a lot of kids, and they may not push through, because doing that one day would have made me turn off and be like, you know what, I should drop out because I can't afford it. Things like those are the reality of a lot of people going to university, trying to go to university. And by the time they reach the point to go to university, it just fall by the wayside because it doesn't make sense because they have nobody around them to support them or tell them, go man, go, or give them the push that they need to go because they live in communities, inner city communities where the average person don't have a degree. So they don't even know the importance of going to school. And they'll tell you, literally, I've heard a person tell me before, why you got a degree? You get yourself in a debt. Go look at a job. They don't in high school the first year. Go look at a job and get that job. When you get the job, try to go back to, you can try get other stuff after that. Them tell you to go to Heart, and which is a good program, not lying. Heart has a good program for second chance education, but Heart is more for the skilled. It's built directly for the skilled personnel, person who want to go and learn a skill. That's the first thing they tell you, go and learn a skill. Okay, it's free. Go learn a skill or go work. Pretty much that's it. We're done high school, them just do that and move on in life. Because
thank you so much, Hakeem. So those are some of the policy the policies that you would have them change. So the school funding is critical. So schools have different needs and those should be evaluated. I think that's pretty good. Donnelly, same question for you. Donnelisa, what would you advise the government to do in terms of changes? And before you speak, I think we'll want to chime in here.
Yeah, Dervin is waiting.
Oh, Dervin, there he is.
Hey, Dervin.
Greetings.
Greetings,
how are you doing,
sir.
everyone? Good evening, everyone.
Yes, welcome, Dervin. Donnelly, go ahead. What are some of the things that you see are challenges, and what are some of the things that you would change? And then we're going to allow you guys just to go at it in Dervin style momentarily.
All right, so growing up, one thing that I definitely find passion in, that I find that the education system needs to fix, is it relates to the orange economy. So I find that a lot of schools would not have a lot of music programs implemented or arts programs in general implemented. And I find that, as the professor had mentioned earlier, that we live in this colonial mindset. So a lot of schools will say, oh, well, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, go do this, go do that, go and study in this particular pathway. And a lot of government officials or ministers may ignore the importance of the orange economy and how the orange economy can build us up. And that is definitely something that I find as well exists a lot among the lower class community, especially because, as my counterpart has mentioned, education is so expensive, and in order to get education you have to spend a lot of money, and this may be inaccessible to a lot of persons. So I love what my counterpart had mentioned in terms of funding. I believe that is a huge problem in our society. Funding for education should not be that difficult, because you may have a lot of persons who may want to study but can't study, and that is pretty sad, because education is upward social mobility. And in order to have a society that prioritizes education, we must understand how difficult it may be for some persons. So that's just my 2 cents on education and education policies. I believe that Jamaica's government should look to prioritize education and its funding, because 20% of our, not even 20%, maybe even lower than 20% of our budget being spent on education is simply not enough. And yeah, it should be improved. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Donnelly.
Can I add, it's 22%, Donnelly, 22% of the current budget, 23 to 24 budget, which is $1.34 trillion. About that, the government is going to spend on education.
Thank you.
All right. Dervin, welcome. Such a pleasure having you. For the listeners who are just joining us, we introduced you earlier, but if you could just tell us a little bit about who is Dervin Cochran and what are some of your goals and objectives, and then we'll continue our convo.
Okay, Dervin Cochran, a current doctoral student in educational planning and social development. I have other degrees diploma and bachelor's in special education, master's in education administration, a law degree. So I'm kind of a well-rounded person. So I know all the skills that I have and all the qualifications that I have will help me to make the world a better place, basically, and to put in implementing sound policies and advocate in terms of the realm of social justice for all, including children with special needs. That's just me.
All right, thank you, Dervin. We asked the other group, what are some of the things that you see happening in the education system that you would like to change? And if you could sit in Parliament and have a conversation with these legislators or the policymakers, what are some of the fundamental changes, the way education is delivered in Jamaica, you would propose?
All right. Our education system is an oppressive type of system, highly oppressive, coming from colonial import, basically. Hence, our system is basically the nurturing of this colonial import. And if we take our children out of the Jamaican setting and put them in the US, the same children who you call dunce pitney, they are the geniuses over in the American system, which tells you that there is something fundamentally wrong in how we teach our children and the teaching and learning processes here. Mark you, there's a flip side to it, because in the same oppressive education system, those of us who have been able to overcome in this oppressive system, if we are taken out of the same Jamaican setting and go abroad, we are exceptional, highly exceptional. So there are plus and minuses to our education system. Also, under the colonial import, we look at the skills education as below or beneath many persons. So those of us who have our degrees would look down on persons who do skill education and call them dunce, which is highly stupid and highly asinine. Because if it wasn't for the skills persons complementing those of us with our degrees, then we would not have a fully functioning society. You need the artisans, you need the skilled persons to help to build structures that represent our society. So if we never have the plumbers, we would have clogged sinks, clogged septic systems, and they are very important. If we didn't put an importance on our mechanics, how many of us cars would be able to drive today? And it's the same persons who are in the TVET system who are the ones who are building the cars, the trains, the planes, etc., etc., etc. So it means that everyone is important in this realm of things. All of us are symbiotic. All of us depend on each other. And that is what we need to get back into the educational system, to realize that every single person is an important component to the overall building up of a society. And as I said before, and I said it in previous fora, that we are doing TVET education incorrectly here in Jamaica, and it needs to change. As I said, I've been doing my studies on the Chinese model, and the Chinese model is very impressive. The same TVET, the TVET institutions, along with the universities, are on par, in which the professors of the universities do their necessary calculations, their theoretical framework of any theory that they have as it relates to science and technology, and they send that information to the TVET institutes, in which those very same TVET institutes develop the prototype and test the prototypes And once these prototypes work, they send back the information to the universities. They say, yes, professor, it has worked. We can move forward with the mass production of it. That is how the Chinese work. That is how the Chinese are now the economic juggernauts of this world. And also, as I said before, China is such a big juggernaut that even the US is definitely afraid of them in terms of science and technology. And I know that the US cannot deny that. So we have to look at how we deliver education in the system a different way. As our Professor Thompson, my professor, would always say, reimagining education. And that's what we have to do. We have to reimagine education and how education is delivered.
All right, reimagine education and how education is delivered. All right, well, I am going to defer to you because I know you're very passionate about these amazing young people and their future. And, you know, as you said, you know, we grew up rough, but we want it to be better for them.
Thank you, thank you. Let me just say, welcome to Dr. Sylvie. Please forgive my manners. And big up to Donna Lisa, Irvin.
I don't reach that yet.
Huh? No, but here's a question I have for our three young people. Given the state of corruption in the Ministry of Education in Jamaica, and I reference the alleged actions of the former Minister of Education, Mr. Rural Reid, who's going through the judicial system right now. Given the fact that we have a minister who has very little to no experience in education, her 2 degrees, they're in the financial sphere. Given the fact that we have 29% of schoolers who won't go on to obtain tertiary education, given the fact that teachers are leaving the profession and Jamaica in droves, and I know this for a fact because not too far from it, they just hired 4 Jamaican teachers. Given all of those things I just mentioned, I'm asking you to give me your best argument for young people's success in Jamaica. If you don't see them being successful, then please say so. But I'm phrasing the question as if to say there is hope. So I want you to give us your perspective on that hope, despite the deficiencies and the maladies and the ills that are besetting our educational system in Jamaica.
That's a good question. As to the hope.
Nobody no answer. Dervin.
All right.
I
don't know how you would define hope, Mr. Rattigan. I don't know how you define hope. Because if I'm looking at the reality here in Jamaica, comparing to what one would think as their absolute vision of hope, it would be relative, and it would be relative to what I see. And I'm going to state the reason why I am saying that. The latest PISA report has illustrated that Jamaica's children performance in math, science, I think in English also, they are very low. So that shows that the output in the education system is not what we expect it to be. That is one. We have to also look at the other aspects of the education system which has contributed to that also, namely corruption in the education system. There has been a litany of stories. Prof even said it, and even I said it in my experience and my friends' experience in the field, that there's a lot of interference in the process of the education system, where, unfortunately, you do have instances where political actors interfere with the appointment of not only principals, but also certain technocratic positions in the ministries. And we have to be clear, we have to, and I'm going to talk it like it is, because many of my friends, that is why many of them have migrated. Many of them would say it. But the only difference is I can say it, and I can say it with no fear, no favor, and no apologies, because it is there. So until we can also deal with that aspect of the education system, then we'll see some level of glimmer of hope. When you have persons who are not qualified but are placed in positions because they are political activists, they are political activists for some MP. And I remember the last time when I was with you, Mr. Rattigan, I highlighted 2 judicial precedences that speak on the interference of political officers in the appointment of principals to our schools. One was the Pataswamy case of India, which states that the appointment of school administrators by public officials is not permitted according to the Supreme Court of India, and any meddling would be viewed as a breach of a basic right to an education. And even the Limpopo case of South Africa even stated that also. Also, let me just highlight another case here. The UE debacle, in which, unfortunately, and it's in the paper, so people can go Google it themselves and will see it. It is titled, I think it's UE debacle, its name, where the current education minister was uncomfortable with the appointment of, and I'm going to say it loud and clear, Professor Denzel Williams. Professor Denzel Williams got the highest in the testing, the testing analysis of, appointment of principals. He got the highest, and she had a problem with it. She wanted to insert somebody into that position over Prof. And I remember I had the conversation with Prof. Thompson. I said, Prof, you know that there's 2 judicial precedents which speak on that, and if the UE Council foolishly go with the minister's prescription, it would put, and I would call UE, the Harvard, Yale, and Princeton of the Caribbean, into great disrepute. The UE is an institution which has over 75 years in advancing the discussion on many issues. So many issues. Its professors have done that, a lot of them. I hope everybody remembers the late Walter Rodney. He was one of those brilliant minds, and he was a product of the UE. Social justice issues, and now recently we have the reparations issue, which UE is at the forefront of it. And you, as the education minister, you want to insert yourself to put who you want. So basically, you're trying to stymie the voice of a massive institution, which I would call the 7th estate, if there's such a term, which gives a voice to the voiceless. Make professors like Prof. Thompson, Professor Figueroa, others, many others, give a voice on various national and international issues and regional issues. But thankfully, the UA Council let good sense prevail and say, let us put, because he has gotten it fair and square. There has been allegations that there have been political interference in other schools and tertiary institutions in this country. And it needs to stop. In order for the education system to function properly, we need to get the best man or woman for the job in those positions. We cannot have political activists. Not because you are in bed, and I'm not saying, well, not in bed with, you're in bed with a political representative, whether literally or figuratively, means that you should get the job. A highly qualified person must get the job. And let us be straight. And I'm going to talk plain and straight because people need to know what's going on. It needs to stop. It needs to stop. That is why many of our teachers are leaving. I have a very good friend. She's in Virginia. She is a young woman and she had a master's in education administration. And then give her such a fight down here. Right now, I spoke to her about 2 weeks ago. And she told me that, Dervin, well, you know, so they're putting me on a course now to become a principal of a school. So she was going to do her doctorate, you know. And she said, just because of that, and they were so impressed with her work, they said they need to put her on to become a principal of a school in the state of Virginia, in the Commonwealth state of Virginia. And I can tell you of other stories of my other friends in North Carolina, South Carolina, and in Florida. So what does that say? It just goes to show, as in the book of Isaiah said, a prophet is never honored in his own country. So our teachers are not honored in their own country. The nurses are not honored in their own country. So then gone abroad and become the superstars. Leaving now a country devoid of the great minds because of a selfish administration, giving themselves 300% increase and telling you foolishness about to get what you paid for. So since you get what you paid for, so when the teachers them are stressed, and it's like almost every week I'm getting a report that a teacher has died in the class, has died. A teacher has died. Almost every week. And that not register in a them head. To see what go on in the system. Why are our teachers dying? Is there a burnout? Is what is going on? You even have cases where schools are filled to the brim and the same political representative call the principal and say, put in this student here. Even though the school full and there's another school that could accommodate them. But then insert them into that other school, into that school when it is full. So you're interfering with the function of the school. The politics is stink in this country. It is stink. And what I can't believe, the persons who were advocating for teachers, and I have to call them out, certain operatives of the JTA, when there was a salary negotiations, and teachers get a mere 20% increase, and yet some of the teachers in that very same organization just fight against each other. Because there was a great divide, you know, from what I'm getting from my friends who are in the JTA. Right? Until the negotiations have been settled now. And the teachers get them paltry sum and the principals get about $12–13 million. But many of them don't realize that they're getting half of what they're being paid. The principal should have actually gotten $23 million. While the teacher should have gotten at least $500,000. Well, Senator Damian Crawford said it. So he's dead right. If you're looking at it from an education economics point of view. So we are in trouble. And we need to stop putting our heads in the proverbial sand and say that nothing is wrong with our education system. something is fundamentally wrong.
Devin, I agree with you. Something's fundamentally wrong. But there's a bit
Fundamentally
of
wrong.
hope. There's a glimmer of hope. The legal framework is there. The Constitution does have as a right of the child, he has a right to education, up to at least primary level. That's the foundation. Once that is there, that's the end all of all. That's the overarching law. It's the Constitution. So once that is there, there's some glimmer of hope. And we have a strong opposition. Currently, we have a strong opposition that rally the troops when there's any inconsistency with government and its practice in the system. Senator Damon Crawford is one of those people that like him blow the whistle and say what him think and leave it there, where people like him in power to ensure at least the interests of the Jamaican people are kept at the forefront of Parliament and the various executive of government. I agree with you. There's a lot of corruption in the Ministry of Education. I agree with you. I agree with you with the involvement of the minister in a lot of the day-to-day activity. I kind of see my understanding as to be a minister. I believe you're not specific. You're not into the day-to-day running of the country. The permanent secretary does that. As the minister, you're oversight. You review and give Parliament and give parliamentary update. Give Parliament an update as to what is going on under the ministry to which you have oversight jurisdiction. That's the minister's job, not the person to tell appoint that person here, I like that person, move that. That's not your job. Never your job. The permanent secretary and the commission the public sector commission that is set up to hire people in the public sector. These are the people that are involved in these activities. And because I know these institutions do exist, I do have a little hope for the educational system in and of itself. I believe there's a few tweaks we can add, like for fixing the opposition leader speaks about fixing the early childhood education, starting from the foundation to rebuild our education system. That is a push that he's pushing, and it's not. I have hope because I've seen where the opposition have pushed an agenda where the government has had, based on how strong the force was, they have taken it on. Example, the what's that name? Income tax. The threshold of income tax move. Government pushed hard, the opposition pushed hard, government accept because the people was right behind the opposition. Things like that give me a little bit of hope that there's a possibility of change, probably not right now, probably 10 years on the line. And the children that we're getting in today's society, I have been in classroom, seen how they operate in classroom. They're not if the teacher saying X and they Google the information, they'll quote where they get it from, and they'll debate with their lecturer, with their teacher saying, nope, this is the facts. This is coming from this is coming from, let's say, the medical board. You're telling this, but this is true, because they have learned. Most of the kids these days know how to simply do a proper research. Just pretty Google the information, they understand the difference between reputable sites. That's something you learn from both first year in high school. They start telling you what reputable sites to use, and they'll do things like that. Because of those little things, I have hope, some level of hope into our education system. Yes, it is flawed, totally, but there are opportunities for growth. Heart exists as well, gives me a little bit of hope, and heart is being pushed heavy now, as to put up more vocational persons, so we get more who can enhance our society. And University of West Indies still pushing up the same although less amount of people for academic like lawyers, doctors, and so forth, but it is happening. We're still having the same turnover, so it gives me a little bit of hope. Damon Crawford spoke about creating a fund to put towards education, to rebuild our education system. Kind of something that I can't see the good in it. So people like him keep giving me a little bit of hope, because they're seeing the flaws, and they're really thinking about finding solution. That gives me a little glimpse of hope. Not saying a full hope, but a little glimpse of hope. But then if I keep using the hope as according to the Greeks, it was a part of Pandora box, is the worst thing to give humankind, but I still have it though. So Donnelly, you have any hope for Jamaica?
Yeah, I was just about to say that even sitting down listening to you young persons speak, young persons like us speak, it gives me a lot of hope because I believe we are the future. We are the future of Jamaica, the future of the Caribbean. And it is important that we look at these flaws and not only look at these flaws and keep our thoughts to ourselves, but come on platforms like these and let the older persons hear and actually word what we believe. Yes. And I also believe there's hope. Actually, I admire the Jamaican education system to a certain extent. Although there are flaws, yes, we must admit. I even right now, for example, in Barbados, we still do the common entrance exam. So, and if you guys remember the common entrance exam,
I'm too young. I'm too young for the common entrance exam.
well, we still do it. So
Yes,
even,
different. I'm that young.
yeah. So even persons, my age, persons that are 11, they know what the common entrance exam is because we still do it. And I believe that countries like us should look onto Jamaica and look at how they have developed their education system to a certain extent. Now, my only flaw when it comes to, not my only flaw, but one of the main flaws I mentioned earlier when it comes to Jamaican education system, however, is the funding. But other than that, I believe there's hope. And I believe that as we continue to go to the table and have these conversations about how we can improve education and how we can, implement education policies, etc., and especially do away with the corruption within our ministry, etc., that, we will get there. And when it comes to corruption, though, and when it comes to not only corruption, but having persons in our ministries who actually understand education, who are actually educated in this topic is very important because I believe that in order to go forward as society, we must have persons who understand what they're talking about, understand how their decisions can have ripple effects onto not only current generations but future generations. Education is just one of those things that is very, very, very important in society, and yeah, it can have a very, very big impact on our children, grandchildren, great grandchildren forever. Yeah, so that's what I have to say on that topic.
Let me just put this up here. And Irvin is very familiar with this. But the question I asked was, given all the deficiencies and all of these issues, tell me about the hope if you see any in Jamaica, right? And Dervin, in his response, gave the impression that there is little hope. Akilim, in his response, said there's a glimmer of hope. And Donna said, lots of hope. I'm going to test the amount of hope you have. Little, glimmer, lots. Donna, pretend you're a Jamaican for the sake of this conversation, right? The immigration gates are open. You go anywhere you want to go in the world today or tomorrow. Same situation, everything I just gave you a while ago. I want to test your hope, all three of you, to see how your mind functions when the situation is when the situation is different, where now you have an option. Because I suspect that all three of you right now, you don't have the option like the one I'm giving you right now, where I say, okay, the gate is open, go anywhere, pick any country in the world and leave or stay in Jamaica. Let me start with Dervin. Quick answer. And I just put this thing up, Understanding Corruption, a marvelous piece done by Dervin, and it lays out. It's too bad I can't go through this. This is going to take an entire program, but it lays out the whole corruption impact on education in Jamaica. So let me just move that. But I just wanted you to know that there is something out there. But let me start with Dervin. Quick answer. The gates are open, my man. Go or stay. Can't hear you.
A country where I have to go. I know that nowhere is perfect.
And you fight
But
this. Don't fight the hypothetical.
no, I know that nowhere is perfect, and I am a realistic person. I'm pragmatic. So even though it's not perfect, I may go to the US or the UK. But then again, the UK's economy is kind of very taxing right now. So maybe it's better if I go to the US for now.
Dervin, you killed Dervin. In the country, no matter. You don't have to give me the country. Just say you're leaving or you're staying. That's all. You're staying or you're leaving, sir. No.
To be honest with you, if the situation, if I am personally not seeing any systematic changes under this government, I will have no choice but to take for myself. Because one, I need to have proper remuneration to help feed my family, to help my family, right? And that is why many persons leave, because the remuneration here is poor. It is poor. And many of my teacher friends who are abroad, they are getting better remuneration. And especially the higher degrees they get, plus the years of experience, the more money they get. And they are living comfortably. And I can tell you this explicitly. No for them tell me say they now come back. End the argument. Don't this so.
All right, sir.
I just have to speak it like it is.
All right, thanks. Straight, as I'm saying. Akilim.
Well, as he said, if remuneration and education in Jamaica is not getting any better, if I don't see much change underneath this government, I'm looking to move to Finland if I get the opportunity to. I would love to raise my kids in Finland. From the compulsory education from 6 to 18-year-old, from 16 to 18 years, from 6 to 18-year-old, they go to school, free education, and then with that level of education, I'll be able to put them into, because I'm getting proper remuneration, so I put them into university, and so they can get a university degree and probably come back to Jamaica after to teach to try to change the system here.
Probably.
Probably.
Please, Yearwood. The focus is now on you. Tell me, are you staying or are you going?
Realistically, just like my counterparts, if I don't see much change, I would go. However, I do believe, in staying and trying to be that change. I do believe in that. So mine is a bit here and there, but most likely go. I would love to go Switzerland.
Well, here's what I'm hearing from all three of you, and it's very encouraging for Jamaica, is that none of you said, I'm leaving today. All of you said, I'm going to watch and wait and see what happens. And then if it doesn't, if there isn't a meaningful change, then yes, I'll leave. And I don't think Dervin, once he leaves, I don't think Dervin is coming back. He says, yeah, I'll come back. But for me, it's very encouraging that despite everything that's going on, that should send you running for the borders. All three of you are saying, you know what? I'm willing to give this Iraq, this Jamaica. I'm willing to give the country and our people a chance. And I'm very, very heartened by that. And I'm going to encourage you. To stick it out for as long as you can, because there are children in Jamaica that really, really need the inspiration. They really need what you have to offer to them. Because without you, remember, it's getting worse. And you're like the last line of defense. And if you leave, I don't know what's going to happen. Because right now we have teachers in the classroom, so-called teachers, quote unquote, who are not certified, who heretofore they would never be put in front of students. But things have gotten so dramatic, things have gotten desperate, that now these people are teachers. God bless our students, what they're learning. So very, very heartened by what I heard from all three of you. And I'm hoping that you will stick it out and that things will change and you won't have to leave. You can take care of children. Thank you.
Dr. Jackson, anything for the students
Actually,
amazing conversation.
I've been taking notes. So one comment and then a question. As we talk about brain drain, and it's not only in education, but also in healthcare, 3 of the most common factors that causes that is working condition, wages, and safety. Persons want to make sure they have the equipment to be able to function and do what they need to do. And Akilim mentioned something earlier at the beginning of the show regarding persons not wanting to pursue higher education. So we know financials is one, but do you also, Akilim, believe that a good portion of that is because of the limited amount of employment once they pursue these education? Because we know persons are getting out of universities or not finding jobs. So do you think that is also a factor? And anyone can take the answer.
Yeah, I believe it's a big factor. It's the first conversation when you tell people you plan to go to university. The first question to ask you, for what reason? Yeah, get a job. You're more like they say you're gonna more like work a call center with me. I soon see a call center because most of the call centers are filled with persons that have a university degree. And my first time going to a call center, everybody I thought I was the smartest one. I'm doing a law degree. There was 6 of us doing a law degree in my little team. My team of 20. 6 of us doing a law degree. Several of them have an education degree. Some already finished their degrees and going on to other studies that they're like, but that's all they could do. So because of that reality, a lot of us have experienced persons after us are saying, we're not doing that. We're definitely not doing that. It doesn't make sense because the amount of money we're paying to pay back to SLB for the money that we take to go to school, not add up with the salary that we were making at the time.
Thank you. And I think, as we venture forward, that may be something we consider, what resources can we put on the island to ensure employability, especially with everything that's going on in all the industries that are coming. But maybe we need to look at ensuring that a certain percentage of these jobs go to persons on the island. That's all for me, Mr. President.
But Ms. Jackson, I was wondering, Dr. Jackson, could you look more into lobbying the government to have more debt forgiveness, like for SLB, provide more funding to the government so they can actually forgive a lot of the debts of SLB, so more persons, at least when they leave university, they're able to at least provide for them family after university, and probably able to give others another opportunity. SLB will be able to fund more persons. I really just think SLB really needs to be revamped, but you start off with debt forgiveness. I've seen it work in America where they give debt forgiveness, and because of the amount of debt, some states, based on the amount of person that they give forgiveness, they allow them to go. They're able to generate more funding after that in that state because the person gets to spend more money in the country on his children and get better. But I think SLB really needs to revamp. Lobby something makes SLB something like other countries like Finland has, and so on and so forth.
And not even just on debt forgiveness, but subsidizing education as a whole.
Yes.
We have something over here which is FAFSA. It's income driven. But that may be something they could look at, but that money has to come from somewhere. So maybe this is a way to, one of the ideas I've thought about with brain drain is that these countries that are being drained, the countries that are taking these individual, that they provide resources to the country, and I looked at it from a healthcare perspective, but it can also apply to education. So America, say for example, America is recruiting our teachers. A portion of what is spent needs to go back to Jamaica so we can reinvest to grow more teachers or develop more teachers. So those are some ideas that we could look at.
That's a system. I think China has that. When China export their persons, a part of the funding, because the government help you to leave, a part of the income you generate with the government, take a piece of it and use that to further build their country. We can do that. I think that's a good thing.
But Dr. Ogilvie,
Mr. Rattigan will propose to our government and maybe they'll accept it. They can just propose it.
But another thing though, Doc, we have a tax called the education tax, and I don't know who is advising the government, but the education tax should have been for education. But yet it goes into the consolidated fund. so the government can do whatever it wants to do with it. When you have a tax that is for specified for some function, we should not be having a deficit. That same money that you have in the education tax could assist in the loan forgiveness for many students who are up to neck in debt at student loan debt. Also, that same education tax can help to rehabilitate some schools. I remember I spoke to a colleague of mine in a certain school in St. Catherine that one school was awash with cash. Everything that they put on, fundraiser, everything, it just sell off. And they had tens of millions of dollars in their bank account. And there was one school further down the road that was in such a bad condition. I remember the person told me that the board chairman at the time and the school were more than willing to give some of that money to help that other school so that other school can get a fighting chance to survive to help these children. That person told me when they went to the ministry said, no, you can't do that, blah, 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 right? But if you had a conscientious education minister, and if you see a school that is awash with cash and the board said, yes, we want to help that school there down the road, and just give them like a cap, like $5 million, the most you can give that school. Okay, good, to help that school. Because I was told, Chichi and Yam out the roof, and you tell me now, if the roof fall down on the people and pick me, I would suggest to every parent, if that ever happened to the pitney, go sue the government. Because that is negligence. That is negligence. If you call it and people don't understand, and I don't think many of these leaders, so-called servant leaders, don't understand the concept of being a minister of government. Under the Westminster system, who were our lawyers, judges, and ministers were men of the cloth. And when you're talking about minister, when you hear pastors that talk, I am minister this, minister that, you're out here to minister to the people, carrying out God's work, to serve the people, right? So as a minister of government, which is of not only colonial import, but of Westminster import, what you should have been doing instead of fattening up your pockets with a 300% increase, use some of that same money there to help poor people picnic. But you don't want to help poor people picnic because you want to fatten up yourself and fatten up your picnic them, so your picnic them can live life. Many of them politicians picnic no go to school here in Jamaica, you know. Them send them off the abroad.
You remember the debate with Andrew's son? Remember the debate with Andrew's son going to public school versus in private school? Remember the period when he was Minister of Education, and that was a conversation about around his child. The fact that we're even having a conversation if Andrew should send his child to public school versus going to high school, going to private school, is enough to tell you that even them don't really.
He doesn't have confidence in our public education system.
He was a Minister of Education.
Exactly, he doesn't have confidence.
But
so you're in the position as a minister, and you can make the change, and yet you take your children out because you don't have confidence in the system.
None at all.
That is what he's saying, you know.
But
people need to open their eyes and realize what is going on. Oh, sorry, what you're saying?
Yeah, that's okay. In my opinion, one of the root causes of this issue is what the government prioritizes, you know. So some governments may prioritize foreign direct investment and et cetera, looking at the economy. But I find that the problem we have with the Jamaican government is a lot of them don't prioritize education. And actually, that's one of the first things I noticed when I first came to Jamaica. It's within the culture, especially what persons will call uptown Jamaica. It's within that culture, because when I first came here, I recognized, I don't know if I should call the name of the school, but I did a student exchange with a uptown school in Jamaica. And I found out what answered a lot of them, well, I may come uni next year, or I may go England, because, you know, due to finances, England was a bit, you know, difficult to obtain, etc. And a lot of them were saying, well, I'm going Princeton, I'm going Howard, I'm going this, I'm going that, this. And a lot of them looked down on Ulimona, and they did not, they don't believe in their own education system, and a lot of them, they want to leave. So I find we may have these educated young persons within Jamaican society who are looking to leave, who are yearning to leave. And these politicians as well are sending their children out as well, as you have mentioned. So they don't believe in their system, and they simply don't prioritize it within their policies and within their budget. Because why would an education why would education fund not go towards education solely?
And asking the same question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You created that tax, and yet you're putting it in the consolidated fund to skettle it out. Let me just put it out. Just skettle out the education tax money than to spend it in education. Are the people and people, poor people picking it too?
And it's not just that, because government would tell you, like, the day before yesterday, like after the last week Saturday, the opposition spoke about the failing education system. As a response to it, I think it was a response to it. The following 2 days later, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, talk about money that she's signing off to school, up to how much billion, to give them access to internet and Microsoft Suite, etc., and they're not using it. Rather than do a research to see what exactly is the problem, she's cussing them out, saying that they're not using it.
No, that wasn't the Minister of Education, my friend. That was the permanent secretary. And that was the very same question I asked, because when I spoke to my colleagues, so all of those suites were given. But did the ministry carry out a comprehensive audit to find out
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
All the schools have proper internet connection? Because I can tell you a lot of schools in the deep rural Baccabush areas still having trouble getting internet access. So you cannot just get up and blame people without doing your comprehensive study through your regional offices, because we have 7 regions each run by a regional director. So the permanent secretary should instruct the chief education officer to say, okay, we need to do a comprehensive audit of this thing. Tell the regional directors tell the EOs, and they speak to the principals, get that information, carry that information to the ministry, send it all the way up to head office, so the data can be scrutinized and say, okay, these schools here in this region don't have this, we need to do something about it. What are we going to do? We're going to have an aggressive relationship with our telecommunications company to do something. If we need to establish more towers, do that. If we have to put more fiber optic, do that. But if we can put more towers up and facilitate the internet connectivity, let us do that. But you cannot go on public platform and just cuss the teacher them, so man. If you don't have the concrete data, because if you don't have the concrete data in front of you to tell you this, you're just going to look like an ass. That is the problem. Oh God, you see, the buffoonery is at an all-time high, you know. The buffoonery is at an all-time high. We have moved from COVID-19 to buffoonery 24. That's the new virus in this country. Buffoonery 2024. My God.
Straight up.
We need a vaccine. We need a vaccine, because this is serious. This is serious.
Same thing I said there, Vince. Same when the permanent secretary started talking, I'm like, so what caused this? Did you know? Like, have you done a research? I even went ahead to call my friend all the way in St. Elizabeth and say, hey, your school is saying that your school now use up the Microsoft suite down again. And she was able to tell me, in the computers them didn't work out and they don't work, and this is happening, and the kids that don't get access, and one whole heap of problem. I'm like, okay, I could see why you're having this much issue. I could see why she's not. And then the funny part is, the permanent secretary is saying she spent this so much last year, much billions last year, and repeat the same amount this year for the same thing and getting the same result. As I said, Albert Einstein said, if you do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, it's a act of madness. And they're all mad, clearly. Because she's complaining that last year she spent much billions, and then the following year to come, she spent much the same amount of money to do the same thing, end up with the same result that she had last year, and try again this year again. Which is the same problem.
What I'm hearing is that we're looking for one, research to see what the issues are in the education system.
That is correct.
Two, a way to subsidize higher education.
Right.
Yes.
Ensuring that we allocate the education funds to education.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And also, not quite sure, we have a process here in the state, actually in the state of Florida. It's called Title I schools. So all schools get the same money, but then if you're a Title I school, you get more money in Title I schools. We also have a process by where certain schools, based on the grades that they get, have higher, get more money. So you're basically saying that we need to have a scaling system for our schools on how much they get based on the economic status of the community.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. That's the
Right.
only way you do good. That's the
I
only
agree
way you
with
can
that.
fund them equally.
Because Doc,
Only
if
way.
you have a champion that is awash with cash, due to them have a very strong support system, a strong alumni, compared to a school in Denham Town, which doesn't have that strong backative. This is how
Several
equity
other
comes into
problems.
play. So since your champion gets a $25 million plus alumni backing, we just want to set champion, we are going to take off a $10 million and give Denham Town because they need it. It's about equity here. Equity.
Yes, exactly
Equity
what
in the
it is.
system.
Equity in the
Right?
funding of the school.
So since you have the 25, we are going to take a $10 million pump into Denham Town because the poor people them need it. Because some of that 10 million could be used for breakfast program to help the people them, right? Also to get the necessary, like the little centrum for kids, because many of them where they are, they are not getting the proper, the right amount of vitamins and mineral. So when they get the food, they eat the centrum for kids and things, and you understand, help them to get a fighting chance to reach their full potential, like those at the champions, the KCs, the JCs, the Calabars, etc. We have to deal with equity in the system. But we are not having equity because of our colonialistic level of thinking. And I remember one time the ministry wanted to zone schools, and they would get a serious political backlash because it's my picnic pass for champion, but champion they 20 miles. You have to send your picnic to champion because champion at the school, because the school are popping. Nah, cut it because blah 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 blah. You understand?
And the
Because
government,
of our colonial thinking. No, the colonial
failing
thinking.
school.
Calling school failing school. How the hell can you call?
Our prime
And the
minister
thing
called
is,
the schools failing school.
yes,
And it's
when
failing
he was
because
Minister
you're
of
not doing your
Education.
parts.
Thank
Literally,
you.
you're the
And why
are prime
would you
minister,
call school failing school?
failing
The
school.
question I would have asked him, Mr. Prime Minister, why would you call the school a failing school?
Having a
Did
research
you do
to see what's
everything
causing
that
the
is
country,
reasonable, possible, before necessary research for you before you call school failing school? Did you do all of that? Did you find out the litany of problems and then try to correct it? I remember at a particular school, as some children who were showing red flags because of my background in special education. They are showing red flags of certain disorders. And I remember I wrote them a letter 3 times to send your school educational psychologist to test them, because as a special educator, you cannot diagnose anybody. You can say they are showing red flags of having X, Y, and Z. But we need your clinical background to check it out for us to plan the necessary intervention. You see, at the time when I was there, nobody, even though you write them 3 times, they not come up there. But then go other schools, but they not come up there. You tell me now. So are them same corrupt people, are them same people there are basically scammers? Because they might live off of taxpayer money. I scam the system. Because when they're supposed to do their work, they're supposed to come to the school. Sorry. When they're supposed to come to the school to help these children, they are not coming. So what is your job then as an educational psychologist? Paid by the government.
Good question, guys. I know we're in our panel discussion segment. we're brought back in the panel, and I know we're down to the home stretch, but this has been really good. I know we've had these seasoned veterans in the business. I've listened to this engaging conversation with our future leader, Dervin, Donalisa, and of course, Aklim. Akilim, that's a very interesting one. Akilim, you know, Professor Nuts, me pop a piece of limb from a piece of Akilim, or something, a piece of stick from a piece of Akilim. Anybody know, if you know Professor Nuts, you know it's sang me at that. But let me say this to you, this has been quite an interesting conversation. And we've seen a lot of people in the chat who have been, giving their feedback and their comment on what is happening. No, we have these seasoned veterans who have listened to you. And at the end of the day, they're passing on the baton to you in one way or another. And everything that is being created here is being created for you. So I'm going to allow, as we've been doing for the format of our discussion, to have these seasoned veterans have a conversation with you. So I'm going to bring in Will first, and then he's going to pass the mic around to these amazing panels. Will.
Thank you. Let me just say that it's the young veterans. When I say young veterans, they're so precocious. And I'm not being that as a small child, way beyond the years. But these three outstanding people, they could run the education system in Jamaica. If you listen to what they've said, and they know, like dear friend of mine said, ask the question, do they think that the government doesn't know? Of course, they know what's going on. And I mean, I've had many conversations with Durban. He's been on the program. He's a staple on the program when it comes to education and corruption. And so this is what a real conversation, a real presentation, a real conference is about, where you bring the people who are affected by the issues, one way or the other, or who can add something to them, and you bring them on and you listen and you probe and you identify and you come up with solutions. This is the real conference. This is the real conference. Now, I have to tell the three of you that there's a business conference going on in the daytime, and they said they're talking about, there's one segment on education in the digital age. I think it's advertised. We won't even go there, because before you can even get to the digital age, we still have 20-something% of the people leaving, only 27% that leave, like what, 73% of students who will not attend a tertiary institution. So the question is, what will they do? And that's where you get your 13,000 a week population. That's where they reside, in that 73%. So I just want to thank you guys for coming on. It's always a pleasure to hear from Akilim and Dervin, and beautiful young lady from Barbados. You need to come and spend some more time with us, because we just love to hear young people, because it's not enough for us to talk amongst ourselves. As you can see, except for I can't see the names them, but except for the professor, all of we are old people, all of we are old people. There you go, Nashika. All of we are old people, except the Triana and Nashika. And so what we want is, we would like for you to download whatever we have in our heads and see if you can shape it and make something out of it. You may not find anything worthwhile from what we have to say, but you may, because we have centuries of experience here. Look at Jeffrey Tavares. Him look young, but Jeffrey is actually 85. And so, this is what we really need. We really need to have the interaction between, the people who are passing the baton on to the people who are actually, who will receive it, because you need that connection. When it comes to education, we cannot have a disconnect. I'll give you one quick example. As most of you know, I was in the FBI for almost 30 years. And when I was getting ready to leave, they had two major populations. They had the population of people getting ready to leave, and they have newbies. They had very few, not enough people in between with experience. So you know what they did? They said, all right, you know what? Although you are by law, you have to retire at 57. They said, we are going to grant an extension. If you want to stay and help the newbies, we're going to give you an extension so that you can stay. So that there's no disconnect. Because if the population I was in, if we all left at the same time, it would be a huge problem, huge learning curve, gaps, all kinds of problems. So that's why we don't want to see this. We would like to pass on the baton to you. And while we're doing it, we share some of our experience with you. And then you take it, you shape it, you mold it, you do whatever you think is best for the society. Because at the end of the day, it belongs to you. We're saying it's your turn now, right? So having said that, let me just bring on Dr. Francis. Dr. Francis. Oh, yeah. As an educator, what guidance can you provide for three outstanding students?
Well, I've listened to them and they sound pretty good to me. I've listened to two before, and the young lady from Barbados, I welcome her here. Been to Barbados, nice place, and they seem to have it together on the beaches, at least one of the ways I know. But I want to say to the young people, keep on doing what you're doing. Dervin, really and truly, you hold no punches, really. And I kill him. I don't know what he was alluding to. I kill him. I kill him or what? I don't know. But you killed it. So I want to say that, young lady, you did a great job. You know, young people, especially ladies, should follow your lead. And I just want to say that I'm really impressed by what you have done. Not many people would be brave enough, would be able enough to say what you have said. And it's obvious you've learned a lot. From research and your own experiences, which is what I would love to hear about. And I look forward to, hopefully they'll apply, because I just listened to some stuff that they had at the conference today, and I've never heard so much BS, and that does not mean BNS, you know, in my life, from people who should know better. You guys are way beyond that. You speak the truth, and please speak it ever, cost it what it will. And that's what you're living by, and help your fellow students. The idea that you want to share what is there and not for it to be kept and diverted into places that we do not want to is amazing. You're really true Jamaicans. That's the Jamaicans I know. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes. We're joined by Jamaican Carlos. Fortunately, was indisposed, but he managed to join us. Better late than never. But Carlos, he told me that he was listening to the conversation. He just couldn't join us, but he's here with us now. Please give us the benefit of your experience as far as these young people getting ready to take the world, because the world is their oyster, as they would say. Give them some advice, please.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, viewers and listeners and people out there in the land. Now, these guys are here, but I tell you guys, I am so happy to hear young people. I mean, I always talk about young people, you know, because you guys have to pick up this baton. We all, like Rattigan said, the youngest one here is Dr. Francis. So, thanks to you guys coming out. By listening to you guys, get some understand here tonight. It's like, I'm not a licensed therapist or anything, but sometimes I give people advice and even guidance. And when people tell me about their problem, it's like a person would go to a therapist. Everybody, if anybody's a doctor here, a therapist, a person would sit down in the couch with a therapist and have these problems. They know their problem. Every person who sit down in the couch before a therapist, they know their problems, because the therapist would allow them to speak. And if you listen to them, when I listen to people, I hear the problem. They know their problem. The only thing they just need a little guidance to go to push on through the journey. These youths right here, they know the problem. They know the issues. They just need funding. What I'm hearing right now is lack of funding in education. And when I hear them talk about it, my skin crawl when I think about the $1.7 trillion that has been gone missing from education, health, and the OPM. I'm wondering what those billions of dollars would have done to education and these young people. You hear the cry. You hear them. It's like a person who go to a therapist. They know their problem. They allow them to speak, and they will tell you their problem. They know their problem. They just need a solution or a guidance. Young people know exactly what to do. Never advice for you young people. Please don't be like me and my friend when we are group and we at the bus stop hang out. They got school and come in. We don't love politician boy, man. Me them boy that go, we don't know nothing with politics. Don't ever get that in your head. Get into politics. You don't have to run for nothing if you don't want to run to. Be interested in that area. That's our problem as Jamaicans. Even when I was growing up, even when I got steps and I graduate, hang out at bus stop with my friend them. None of we not in enough politics. We will show up at election time when a politician show up to take off our money off of him. And them a food mentality. You know what I'm talking about? That's not good enough. Don't get into that. Get into politics because politics is what took us here. Politics is what gonna take us out of here. Don't listen to nobody. You have to pay attention to politics and know how your country runs. So I'm glad to hear on attack. I realize that you know the problem already. You guys just need like a person who sit before a doctor. Just let them talk. They will tell you everything. They will tell you the problem. These kids just need some solution. We're not calling the kids. Young people just need some solution and guidance and funding for education. Thank you guys for coming out here. Enough love.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, we have Mr. Herb Nelson. He's up next. Give us the benefit of your experience, sir, or give the young people the benefit of your experience.
Thank you, Mr. Rattigan. I hear mentioned in the conversation earlier that there needs to be the equivalent of us more studies. And let me tell you, folks, we have had so many studies, and the only thing that's obvious from the studies is that the studies do not directly address the corruption issue. For a very long time, since Member of Parliament Holness gave away contracts to a partner and to a firm that he has interest in and his wife has interest in. That started around 2007, maybe earlier. And it's continued till now, right? You have these giveaways in the form of Royal Reid coming in to replace the Prime Minister in the Education Ministry, and him practicing nepotism, right? He pretty much misappropriates a lot of funds, and his protege, Dr. Grace McLean, misappropriates $124 million, is sent home, not put on trial for anything, and now she wants to come back and claim back pay and all kinds of stuff. This is the kind of rampant corruption that's happening in the education ministry. Corruption impacts efficient use of public funds. They divert resources away from critical areas of education, right? The misuse of these funds and the wasteful spending hinder educational progress. We don't need any more studies. We need arrests. We need for people to be arrested, tried, and put in jail down at General Penitentiary and send a clear message to stop messing with the kids' money. You know, another study is not going to cut it. Even the British Embassy been doing studies, and they have released a study to help Jamaica with the STEM and STEAM programs, right? The investigations, they keep continuing with a hope of improving education, but it's not enough. It has is like the Prime Minister. 3 years, no satisfactory statutory declaration. It's time to put him on trial. It's time to send him to GP. You don't send anybody to GP. The minister in MSET, same problem. Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology, the first rip-offs occurred on his watch, right? Petrojam, 8 million barrels of oil missing. Monies from the Venezuelan Petrocaribe missing. And then it just goes on and on. It's one hit after another. It's become sickening, folks. We no longer
I called you
need
about 20
investigation.
times. I haven't answered me. How come you answer now? Yeah, but you could have sent a damn text. I was
Doc,
calling you.
Doc, you need to mute. Yeah, I didn't hear much talking about when they say education and loan forgiveness in Jamaica. You have the Edu Aid Jamaica Limited. You have the Student Loan Bureau. I didn't hear much talk about that, right? School infrastructure challenges. We know that schools like the St. Jude's, very popular school, Yalasai School, they suffer from the infrastructural damage caused by earthquakes, right? We have buildings, neglect, maintenance, inadequate facilities, crumbling structures that pose health and safety hazards, right? And then there's a Patterson report on education transformation, highlighted issues including ineffective schools and performance gaps between public and private schools, right? We have quite a few studies out there, and we need to bring them all together in focus, and we need to do prosecutions. I mean, no more this, we send them home to sit down and wait. 'Cause that's what is happening now with it happened with Dr. McLean and it's happened with Royal Reed, right? And the very man who first misappropriate and send contracts to his buddies is Prime Minister. So what do you expect? You cannot have the rot that starts with the head and hope that that head is going to do something about the rot that he created below him, right? Things have to change. And a good sign was the last elections where we saw the change happen with the corporate area changeover in governance. Now let's hope that when the Integrity Commission gives them that training, that they all sign the training pledge and that they will go ahead and just start the prosecutions rolling. We need prosecutions. We don't need more studies. I appreciate it. And folks, I enjoyed your presentations immensely. And those in the audience, you had some very good comments as well. So thank you for having us.
All right. Mr. Jeffrey, we're pressed for time here. Mr. Jeffrey Tavares. Yes, sir.
Good evening once more, ladies and gentle people. It's a breath of fresh air when you have young people can come on and speak to us, the older folks, although Rattigan, I'm 85. It's good to sit down and listen to young people speak to us, because at the end of the day, they're going to go back in the history archive and say, a Wilfred Rattigan and a Herb Nelson Jr. was in a panel, and some young people came on and speak about education. Our education system in our country has gone to the dogs. And when you have a minister of education who can't tell the nation why our teachers are leaving education institution, or when you have a minister of education, when you call her to tell her that a teacher at the Statius Golden High School has been sexually assaulted by an ex-teacher, And all I can hear from her, I'll call you back. She never called you back. When you have a minister of education, you can call and say, hey, there is a janitor at the Stations Golden High School who sexually assaulting 3 girls. And nothing has been done about it. It shows you that our education system in our country is not up to par. But I can say this tonight, by listening to these 3 young people here, Jamaica is in good hands. If we all should go home tomorrow morning to our maker, we can rest assured that these young people has Jamaica's interest at heart. When you hear them say that they'll never leave the country, they'll stand up and fight for this piece of rock of ours. And I end by saying that the change that we seek as a nation will never come from the political parties in this country. The fundamental change that we seek as Jamaicans have to come from us. And when you have young people standing up in our country, I lift my hat to you all. Thank you for coming on. A bit of fresh air this evening. Mr. Rattigan, Mr. President.
Thank you. Dr. Nashika, I don't see her. Okay, there she is.
I am still here. I want to echo that I am so pleased with these young men and this young lady. It gives me great joy to know that we do have a beacon of hope on the island. So thank you very much for what you do. Continue to do it, and we'll continue to support you.
Thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Nashika. We got a caller on the line. Carla, go ahead. You're live with the team.
A pleasant good evening to everyone, to all the panelists, and of course, the leaders of this wonderful conference. I am elated, I'm overjoyed, and I'm extremely pleased. This has given me hope again to say that Jamaica will turn, Jamaica will come back. The trajectory looks good. I'm so enamored with the panel, with the young lady from, bear with me, my eyes and can't see so good, but the young lady from Barbados, Akilim, and of course, Durban. They really hit the nail on the head, and they speak to what the issues are at the end of the day as it pertains to education. And I just want to say, keep it going. Keep it going. Keep on beating your drums, because you know what eventually become annoying to those who are listening, and they'll turn and get your attention, and then we'll tell you what is it you want us to do. Because I will also advise you that they are in the comment section and they are listening and they're taking away substantive stuff from here to go back to see how they can implement it and then take credit for it. But don't stop doing what you're doing. And I also want to say that this is the People's Conference. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Carla. Appreciate you. And ladies and gentlemen, the lines are open. Hold on, Carlos. The lines are open. And the numbers scrolling in the ticker below in the lower third, 757-655-3377. That's 757-655-3377. Carlos, go ahead. You had a thought.
Unmute your mic, Carlos. Unmute your mic.
The young people on the platform panel just now, I'm sure they are listening to you. And there are a lot of young people pushing this program. Now,
Hold on. Mute Durban, please.
Yeah. Let me give them a brief history of education and the push to give us some education as a people who was just coming out of slavery when I was growing up. Because they don't know enough. We have to tell them. Brief. When I was going to school, I used to get milk powder, bulgur, cornmeal, and flour to go home. You guys don't get that. I'm sure you guys don't see that in your lifetime. We used to get uniform material, shirt material, pants material. Girl would get skirt material or dress material and blouse material. So you could go home ease the burden of appearance so the youth can come back to school. So talking about, so you could cut down the, people always say, man, I have money to send me come to school, pick me come to school. So all they have to do is take that material to the tailor or the dressmaker to ease the burden of appearance, then they come back to school. You used to have Jamal. So as a youth, a younger youth, I used to see more push for education. We used to have that beautiful library bus we drive up in our school and into our communities. We used to see community centers open up, training centers open across Jamaica. The push for education. Young people, I know what you guys are talking about. You guys are wiser, smarter, more intelligent. Can you imagine if the drive for education was still around like when I was much younger? Especially under Michael Manley administration. Every Jamaican right now, no matter what they vote for, we all agree that Michael Manley is the best. Everyone, I'm sure, right? So with Michael Manley plan for good education is one where of service. You go to high school, you come back, you serve. You go to college, you come back, you serve. You feel the O level, you come back and serve. Michael Manley said, even if you go to the end of university, you come back and give back to the primary school you teach. But under Michael Manley plan, great plan for education, will send you to get in trouble right now with Andrew Onassis' plan. Because right after Big C, people, after 2 years of people being out of school, this administration here come up with a great plan. They have this new education act that you can't come in a classroom, come teach unless you go to school and come back with your credential, university and come back credential. They are evil. You cannot even tutors right after the Big C. And I'm wondering, why is the Prime Minister going at education like this? You should be calling out for everybody to grab a youth, teach them some maths, teach them some English. You need, science, something, teach a youth them because they were out of school for 2 years. But instead, the Prime Minister, this administration went the opposite, my people, and clamped down on education where you can't go to high school and teach anymore. Like a lot of youth in my school when I was growing up, they went to high school, they bright enough to come back and help out. That was Michael Manley's plan. But if you try to apply that plan today, is $500,000 and 6 months in jail.
All right, thank you so much. Carla, go ahead. You're live on Reason on the Diaspora Conference.
Yes, hello, good evening. This is Jovin again from California. And I just want to offer a couple of suggestions as it relates to improving education in Jamaica. I'm over here in California, and I have school-age kids, a 13-year-old just getting ready to go to high school, and I have a kid on the elementary level. But one thing I realize over here is that the school within the school districts they're kind of integrated. Like my 13-year-old, he already know what high school he wanted to go to and what programs that he wants to get into. Say, for example, and he wants to be in advanced math, right? And the reason why he knows that because the school within the school districts are already integrating, are actually sending people on a constant basis to the middle school, and then also from the middle school to the elementary school and so on and so forth. So they know like the music teacher, they know the soccer coaches, they know the football coaches, they know teachers from whatever school they want to go to or whatever school they might want to go to. They know the requirements. They know what the requirement is for advanced math, English, or whatever the case may be. So I think that could help, probably not from a governmental level, but from a school board level or a school district level. I don't know if they district the schools in Jamaica. The last time I go to school in Jamaica was in 2004. So I don't know if they district, but that's another way is to district the schools and kind of integrate them so people are not really going to school like all the way out there in like another parish, leaving from St. Anne to go to school in St. Mary, and from Discovery Bay. Like I used to go to a school in St. Mary, and I have people traveling from Discovery Bay to come to Iona High School in Tower Isle, St. Mary. To me, that's ludicrous. Is to integrate the schools and find out areas which the student wants to go into, send key personnel over there to talk to the students and so on and so forth. So that's my 2 cents. I'm not going to take up too much of you guys' time.
Thank you so much for your participation. I appreciate it. All right. 56. I'm sorry. I was going to give out the radio station number. 757 655 3377. 757 655 3377. All right. Ratty, back to you.
Prezi, somebody just reminded me, you might want to do a little bit on the fundraising side while we're here.
Absolutely. And I see some calls are coming in from Jamaica. The only problem is, and I don't know why, the calls are coming in and I only see after we miss the calls, but
it might be the gentleman calling back again.
Hold on, I see what causes the. All right, yeah, it's off. Do not disturb is off, but for some reason, it's going to voicemail, and I see several calls from Jamaica. But while we're getting that resolved, we certainly want everyone to remember that we need your participation. Please head on over to the OJLDF website. It's the easiest way to see where the information is. Caller, please hold the line. It's the easiest way to see where the information is as it relates to supporting what we're doing. The One Jamaica Legal Defense Fund is the fund that we use to fight corrupt politicians. And we have a lot of expense because filing a lawsuit is not cheap. And there is a lot of different moving parts and people who are doing various things to get accountability to these crooks. So we need your support. You know, when I was in DC, you know, a man come up to me and give me $100 and say, yo, we have the money, you know, every week we come on a program and keep program and even ask the money. I said, see $100, man. And he had me $100 cash and was like, put this towards the fund. And he's like, you need to ask people have the money I want to give. And that's true. And then me say, you know what? We should never deny people the opportunity to give if they want to give. And I know better than that. And it's absolutely, you know, true that we need to focus on giving. And we want the people to have an opportunity to give. So please head on over to the ojldf.net website and please go over there and give something. For those of you who are a little bit sophisticated like myself here and love to give electronically, please use the QR code. It's right up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. It's a Cash App. If you have the Cash App on your phone, all you have to do is scan that, and then you will be good to go. Carla, thank you for your patience. You're live on the program. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say it is so good to see young people advocating for their country in educational, upliftment. It's so good. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate your input and your participation. And for the rest of you who've been calling in, we are open. 757 is the number. Let me get that number again. I tell you, 757 655 3377. 757 655 3377. So please use the QR code in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Head on over to the ojldf.net website. Please, we're looking forward for your contribution. And as Will said, we don't want to deny people the opportunity because it's important. And I know you want to participate and help us. And we got some big things coming up because we have some people we're about to take down. And let me say this, because I know with 100% certainty that no phone I watch. I'm not afraid of no. You know that. We're not afraid of no. And let me tell you this. You see, the most you can do is try and throw mud. The most you can do is run off your mouth, because guess what happened? To you, say you sit down on a seat of power and you feel safe. But let me tell you this. We don't have to come at you with any salacious material. We don't have to come at you with any kind of negative energy. All we have come to you is with the people's opinion, and we're coming to you with truth, and we're going to hold you accountable. So no matter feel say, yeah, get away with anything. You know them say? Time longer than rope. You know, Ratchet always say, all we have is time. All we have is time. So bring it on. I'm sorry, I don't know why every time these Jamaican number come in, the phone is not ringing and I can't call you guys back. So I want to apologize for that. We're going next week or sometime we're gonna get a WhatsApp number, so it's a little bit different. But for some reason, every time a Jamaican number come in, it just does not. I just see when you miss it, and several Jamaican numbers have called in. So I want to apologize to all of you who are calling in. But yes, please head on over to the website and give us a donation. Rachi, back to you.
Yeah, let me just remind everyone, or inform and remind people that tomorrow on the People's Conference, the topic will be national security and also constitutional reform. The national security piece will be presented by a researcher, a professor from UA, Professor Anthony Clayton, who's done tremendous work, lots of work for Jamaican governments, and I say governments plural, in the area of crime prevention. And the constitutional reform segment will be provided by, presented by none other than Isat Buchanan. I think he's had, he's been very, very busy. And so we're privileged to have him tomorrow night. I think he just finished up the Vibes Cartel trial today. But he'll be with us tomorrow night to talk about constitutional reform. So all the questions, all the issues, all the concerns you have about the Constitution, you can raise them tomorrow. And not just the reform. You can talk about the fundamental rights and freedom section. I think it's section 3. You can talk to him anything about the Constitution. He's open for that. So tomorrow's going to be a very, very exciting night. You can't afford to miss it. As you know, I heard that I saw a program where the police commissioner was going to address the business conference folks for 30 minutes. And he was going to address them on Plan Secure Jamaica. Well, Jamaica is insecure right now as far as crime is concerned. So enough of that. Tomorrow night, though, the People's Conference, we will deal with the issues head on. And not only will we identify and discuss the issues, but we will provide solutions. Now, whether the government wants to take the solutions or not, that's fine. We know they're, the people who are in charge of making decisions, they're very, very arrogant. And so they see no place for us at the table. In fact, they scolded Dr. Francis. He told him, we don't need you, go ahead from here. So we have some of the best crime fighters in the Western Hemisphere, and we can deal with our crime problem at home. We don't need anything from you. You can come and we'll approve you to make a speech and we will accept your funding, but don't ever think for a moment that we will work with you as far as addressing the crime issue. So there we go. Back to you, Prezi.
Thank you, Wilfred. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to hang up the golden microphone. And please remember to donate to the ojldf.net website. So I want to thank all our panelists. I'm going to pass the mic around. Everyone has 30 seconds to give their final remarks. I think we should, they say age before beauty or beauty before age. So Donnelly Yearwood, you go first.
I would just like to say it was a pleasure, an absolute pleasure being here. And I really enjoyed the conversation and hearing from my older counterparts. Though, young in spirit. But yes, and I love that this was a great conversation tonight because education is something very dear to my heart. And I was very, very excited to come on here and speak on my opinions.
Thank you so much, Donnelly, and your presence was well worth it. Akilim, don't kill him, Mr. Aki. Mr. Don't kill him, Akilim.
It was a pleasure to be here to listen to the lecture earlier. Actually, took some notes from it for discussion I'm gonna have later with some other friends that I have that we're talking about the same topic. So I have some pointers that I didn't even look into, but he went on certain points. I was like, yeah, let me take notes of that. So it was good to have the older folks with me, even though I'm forever 22.
Hold on, before you continue, is that a patch of gray hair in a middle of your head?
Yes, it is.
Tell them about that. Tell them about that gray hair there. Tell them about that gray hair there.
It's genetics. It's both my mom and my dad's side. They gray. Some persons in the family gray early. So I start graying from 6th grade.
Oh my goodness, that's a gray hair is a sign of wisdom. So
that's what they say.
Well, you definitely is a wise one. So we appreciate love that.
Thanks. It was really, really good being here and sharing my opinion and and listening to the professor speaking some of the exact same thing I said a couple weeks ago to somebody else online, and being like, so I'm not the only person. I thought I was the only crazy one, but whereas I'm not the only crazy one. We're all here. I'm sharing with Donna Lee from Barbados and Dervin. I've met Dervin before. Yes, he's really, really into the education.
Awesome sauce. Well, you have another crazy one. The man himself, Mr. Cochrane. How are you, sir? Final thoughts. Unmute.
Okay. I'm humbled to be on your platform to share my little 2 cents to the world, and I'm just hoping that those in administration will listen to what we are saying and just correct course. We have to correct it. It has to be corrected. If not, we are going down into a cesspool drain of nothingness and utter buffoonery. That's all I will say on this matter tonight.
All right, that's all you will say on this matter tonight. All right, moving all the way from the top. He loves Jamaican, so even his name is Jamaica. Your 30 seconds, Carlos. Please unmute, my brother.
I just think in life. You know, as a they're gonna be there. These people are like we talk all the time on my platform. Of future MPs and prime ministers and soldier and police, doctor, lawyer, judge, you know, nurse and doctor, father and mother. You know what I say? So I wish you guys the best in all the endeavor. All I'm just saying, what I said earlier, what I see here is funding up our education. I'm just going to be honest with young people, because if based on where we're coming from with Michael Manley, and I showed you a while ago, Michael Manley even give you food to make sure so you have the excuse not to come to school. Even help with you, you know, school lunch. And I know he put a mutual program. You know, I'm saying that the people is going down. So and my thing, I believe we need to start cook a school again, because some of the best meal you ever get for the whole day are the school meal. They need to push more funding in education and take this thing serious. Listen to the young people. That's all I have to say, man.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I appreciate your input. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeffrey Tavares.
You mean the 85-year-old Jeffrey Tavares that William spoke about? I just want to say it's been a pleasure being on this platform here tonight. And the young people who came on, as I said before, gave me hope. But I want to leave the platform tonight with something that we're not divided as our politics suggested. We're one nation, and we can become the change that we seek in this country. And we as a people must stand up. We must remember that we're not PNP or JLP, we are Jamaicans. And our nation is crying out from within. And the hope that we have for this country is we the people. I'm not comparing the American Constitution with Jamaican Constitution, but in the American Constitution, it speaks about we the people. And we the people must demand accountability. And we the people must demand a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Not a government of the favorite few, but a government that can stand up and speak to us with respect. We need a prime minister who don't walk out of the Parliament of Jamaica and believe that he walks out of the People's National Party. The entire government walk out of the Jamaican people. And that is to show the level of respect they have for us. So as we leave this platform tonight, I leave this platform with the hope that this country will one day be the country where we can live, work, and raise family. We leave this platform tonight knowing that we are Jamaicans and we will continue to fight for this piece of rock of ours. May God bless you and may God bless Jamaica land we love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Nashika Jackson. I always forget her. Like when we're on the radio, you know, everybody get a chance, but she gets one we call the big ups and the bun out. I'm not sure if she have any big ups or any bun out tonight, but Dr. Jackson, over to you.
So the Sustainable Development Goal has, one of the goal is a quality education with the United Nations. And this is something that Jamaica has attested to being a part of. Currently, we are not on track to meeting that 2030 goal. As we all know, education is a way to break poverty. Without investing or properly invested in our education system, we are bound to be a nation in poverty. So we need to address this. We need to listen to each other. Some of the suggestions that came out of today's People's Conference, our politician needs to look at, even if they won't give us credit for it, but at least attempt to implement some of the strategies discussed tonight. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you so much for participating. Ladies and gentlemen, over to the intelligent analyst, the one and only Herb Nelson.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to our esteemed student guests tonight. You have certainly enlightened all of us with your backgrounds and with your information and your analysis. In Jamaica, 1.8% of students between grades 8 and 10 drop out of high school every year. The figure they say is even higher in Western Jamaica, where lotto scamming is prevalent, reaching 3%. Beyond poverty, other reasons for dropping out include teenage pregnancies, weak parental support, bullying, limited job prospects, uninterest in teaching methods, and the lure of other activities, which includes criminal get-rich-quick schemes. Efforts to address these challenges must be highlighted in our communities. I know you have CDC and you have other organizations operating in the communities, but all of these organizations must come together under one umbrella, which most likely is the CDC, to address our at-risk youth and to give direct support to them with the different programs that I know is being paid for by USAID or Canadian Aid or UK Aid, the Heart NSTA Trust for youth training, the National Youth Service Corps, and so many programs that are available. Those programs need to be flooded with people. I mean, literally just flood them in to register them so that the government can see, hey, all these people are at risk. All these people need immediate help. What are you going to do? When they called for this conference, my first words were, I heard nothing about saving our population, about saving our at-risk youth, about helping to restore families after the critical COVID period. And I'm still not hearing anything. Half hour by the police commissioner is not working. And so I am not going to let up on this subject that we do need to address community development, community building. Project STAR is not working either. It's been underfunded. So let's find programs that address all 14 parishes and fully address our youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Herb. Ladies and gentlemen, the goodly doctor, Dr. Rupert A. Francis.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to thank you for coming on this evening and listening to us. And I want to thank the students. I mean, I'm telling you, these guys are bright, and the future is theirs and ours. I want to say that I asked them to remember this diction that by example shall we lead. And I know for a fact, listening to them, that they will be leading by example. Yes, enough respect to them and everybody else. I want to remind the Mr. President that we're on the radio together as well. Myself, himself, and Dr. Nikisha. He keeps on forgetting that. So hopefully he'll not forget that in the future. And I'm not necessarily the oldest man, just the cutest on the platform at the moment. But I want to thank you very much for the opportunity. And I want to share, thank you. I look forward to hear. Listen to me. Listen to what they said today. You are going to be amused and amazed what these people said about crime today. You're just gonna, so tomorrow will be a great evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We look forward to being together again and to talking more about what is going to make our country the country we want it to be. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Rupert. Yes, and I do stand corrected. This is the goodly doctor, Dr. Rupert, and all three of us up here in the top corner are on Super Jams Radio 103.7 and 99.5 HD2 FM. All right. So big up to all the Super Jams listeners who are joining us. And for those of you who will see this in the future, but ladies and gentlemen, our fearless leader will have his final word, Mr. Wilfred.
Thank you, President. Let me just say, big up to Prezi, the guests and the panelists, people. Oh, I'm amazed and I'm hopeful, and we have become smarter by virtue of this event because so much information was transmitted and exchanged tonight that we can only hope that the government will play this tape and take heed. One of the hallmarks of a good leader is to develop more leaders. People don't think about it in that fashion, but think about it. One of the hallmarks of a good leader is to develop more leaders. And how do you do that? You do that via education. At least that's one of the ways, principal way. Now, you can have no greater impact, I believe, in this world than to impart education, spread education, and empower people who will empower and teach people who in turn will empower and teach more people. That's the beauty about spreading education. We're not about keeping power within a silo or keeping information within a silo. We're about spreading that. And in that vein, I'll leave you with a Chinese proverb. And I know my good friend Dervin is going to love this because him love the Chinese. Whether you like him or not, him love the Chinese. But here's a Chinese proverb that I'll leave all of you with tonight. It says, if you're planning for a year, sow rice. If you're planning for a decade, plant trees. And if you're planning for a lifetime, educate people. Educate people. Thank you very much.
That's deep. That's deep. That's deep. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give some big shout out to some amazing people. I want to thank all of our OJLDF executive staff who have been doing a wonderful job behind the scene. Two of them tonight have decided to become our chat administrator just to make sure tonight is their night on the task. But I want to big up some people. I want to start out by bigging up our de facto leader, Marva. Marva, big up herself. Omar, big up herself. Opal, big up herself. I want to also big up the two Janets, Janet from England and a Janet from the States. So DePass and Bennett, big up herself. Also want to big up B, Rosie, and everyone else who volunteer with our groups. And for those of you who came to me in New York and said, Mr. President, you know, say I'm a volunteer and nobody will call me. Well, don't worry. The team will. We give them a couple of days. We never try to pressure them. Give them a couple of days to kind of recoup after the trip from Saturday. But also, they've been working on some amazing research about the water system in Jamaica. And they have done a tremendous amount of research. And you'll be hearing more from them and the work they have been doing as it relates to water and Jamaica. And ladies and gentlemen, when I say this group is phenomenal, so we're talking about aquifers in Jamaica, like the Ligoni Basin Aquifer, the Rio Cobre Basin Aquifer, the Marta Bray Aquifer, the Great River Aquifer, the Rio Bueno White River Aquifer, the Blue Mountain South Aquifer. And we're talking about rivers like Black River, Rio Mino, Marta Bray, Rio Cobre, White River, and the Great River, Yalas River, etc., Wagwata, and many others. So there's some great, interesting research they have been doing and presenting it, and we will find a creative way to present these during our conference because there is so much out there that this team is doing. And you're going to hear, because when we talk about surface water and underground water system in Jamaica, Jamaica have enough water. We're talking about trillions of gallons of water the country is pushing out, just pushing out. And on a daily basis, there are so many gallons of water that Jamaica is pushing out. But you'll hear more. But that's passionate to me. I'm very passionate about that. And this week is going to be great. But tomorrow is a time we're going to focus on crime and crime intelligence. Again, my name is Lincoln Lewis, aka Mr. President. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you and all of you for participating. As we close today, if you would be so kind, please bow your heads as we say a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for tonight. We ask you as we close that you will bless us. Bless Jamaica, our land we love. Bless all our people. Bless the administration that is in power. Bless the opposition. Bless all the leaders, the police officers, the civil servants, and everyone who work. Father, we may have political differences and ideologies, but I do know that by your will, you will bring forth the thing that will be the best possible outcome or lead to the best possible outcome for your people. Help us as we advance towards an equitable, just, and a really corruption-free society. That is the kind of society that's the ideal society which you want. And in our ideal Jamaican society, where we will love and respect each other, and we will have a corrupt-free and a wonderful and a loving place to call home. Help us as we advance these ideals, and I pray that you will bring it to pass. Bless the rest of the days that we have for this conference. We tell you thanks. In Jesus' name. We all say, amen. Thank you again. Have a wonderful evening. And to all our panelists, on behalf of Wilford Rattigan, Dr. Rupert Francis, and all the other team. I want to thank you, our vloggers and our panelists. Thank you so much. And we wish all of you a wonderful and a good night. Take care till we meet again. Thank you so much. We wish all of you a wonderful and a good night. Take care.